You're listening to part 1 of this audiobook. Enjoy the story? Part 2 and the rest of the story are available on Patreon. Go to Patreon and search for my page to continue listening. Now, let's begin part 1. Chapter 1 Big Brother. The beach under the sun has a charming charm. The sea washed gently on the beach, and then slowly receded, leaving behind wet traces and some small aquatic creatures, and the rhythmic sound of clattering sounded so pleasant. Ian stood on the beach and waited for a while, and finally saw a dark shadow flying from the sky, and hurriedly whistled. After the black shadow heard the whistle, it immediately turned and flew towards his position. When it got close, it was clear that it was a seagull. A strange seagull. It is very large, with a sailor's hat on its head and a backpack hanging from its neck. Seeing him land on the beach, Ian stepped forward, took out a coin, handed it to it, and said, "A newspaper." However, when the seagull saw the word 50 marked on the coin, he shook his head in embarrassment and took out a piece of paper from his backpack with his pointed beak, with a large number written on it, 80. The price has gone up again. Ian stared at the seagulls and said angrily, "Didn't it just go up last week? Why did it go up again this time?" Coo! The seagull made a cry, and its wings scratched its head, looking embarrassed, meaning that it couldn't do anything about it. Okay, here it is. 80 Baileys. If the price goes up again next time, I won't patronize you." Ian took out 3 10-character coins from his pocket and handed them to it, and the seagull received it. After paying, he pecked out a newspaper from his backpack and handed it to Ian. The seagull flapped its wings and flew away, while Ian opened it with a newspaper and looked back while walking back. I saw a huge headline on the headline, "The Red-Hair Pirates appeared in East Blue. Red-haired Shanks." Ian sighed, 4 emperors. This is really the world of One Piece/King of Pirates. It has been 3 months since I came to this world. After Ian once again determined the world he was in, he didn't know whether to cry or laugh. Ian's original name is Anyi. He was originally an ordinary young man on Earth, but he was unlucky. When he was shopping, he passed by a KFC that he often went to. It was exactly 12 o'clock. I rubbed the net outside the store and played the mobile game I was playing to get some physical strength, but at this moment, the big sign outside the KFC store suddenly fell off, smashing him straight. He estimated that he must have died, because when he woke up again, he found himself in a strange place and possessed a 10-year-old boy named Ian. At first, he didn't understand where he was. This place was just a small remote village with no information, until he suddenly heard the words One Piece/King of Pirate Schroger in the mouth of Master Cow's hero, and suddenly just bewildered. It was only then that he realized that he had come to the world of One Piece/King of Pirates, and here is the village of East Blue Shimotsuki. He never thought that he would be able to traverse here by rubbing the net. Although he is also a pirate fan, he still felt a little unbelievable that this kind of thing happened to him. It is also wrong to rub the net? And let no one live? While thinking about it, he walked towards the village. Soon, Ian came to the outside of a dojo, and outside the dojo, a man with round glasses, long black hair and a long ponytail, had a gentle and harmless face. The smiling middle-aged man was standing there waiting for him. "Master!" After seeing the middle-aged man, Ian quickly quickened his pace and shouted, "This is this week's newspaper." This middle-aged man is Ian's master, Cow's hero. Ian's identity is an orphan. He was adopted by Cow's hero since he was a child, and he learned kendo in the dojo. Cow's hero took the newspaper, touched Ian's head, smiled and said, "Thank you for your hard work." This was originally a gesture of intimacy, but although his body is a child now, his mind is an adult. How can he bear such an action? So he feels very awkward now. Fortunately, Master Cow's hero didn't notice his strangeness. He walked to the dojo while reading the newspaper. Ian followed behind him and walked in. "Red-haired pirates? What are they doing at East Blue?" Cow's hero looked worried after reading the news. Ian couldn't help but pouted behind his back. He knew what Cow's hero was worried about. Although the red-haired Shanks was a good person in the comics, he still had the name pirate after all. Master Cow's hero was worried that pirates would appear in the Here. It is not without reason, but Ian knew that Shanks appeared in East Blue, but he only stayed in Windmill Town for a short time, and would not come to Shimotsuki village. Therefore, Master Koshiro's worries are unnecessary. Windmill Town. Ian couldn't help but recall again, is that the town where Luffy is? Will red-haired Shanks have a fateful encounter with Luffy there? Just as he was thinking about it, Cow's hero patted his head a few times, and said, Ian, what are you thinking? When the time is up, ask your juniors and brothers to practice together. Yes. Ian responded with a downcast. If you want to say what is the most uncomfortable thing for Ian to travel into this world, it is undoubtedly the sword-swinging practice in the dojo for a fixed period of time. There is no reason for it. You can imagine being with a group of people who still have snot and show it stupidly. Is it the scene of the little kids with missing teeth smiling in a neat row and swinging their swords together? It felt so stupid. Soon, the disciples in the dojo were all assembled, standing in 2 columns on the left and right sides of the dojo, holding bamboo swords in their hands, waiting for the start of the practice. These children who came to the dojo to study are all from Shimotsuki village, and they are all boys. Ian looked forward and saw the row opposite, with uneven height, shortness, fatness, and thinness. If he looked at himself, it would not be better. Where to go? The first one on the left is a little kid with thick glasses at the bottom of a wine bottle. Every time I see him, Ian will think that the position of this guy's eyes is actually 2 circles. Going down, it was a little boy with a bald head. The snot dripped down, snorted and sucked back, dripped down again, and sucked back again. Further down, there is a small curly hair, but his hairstyle is completely new, like the untransformed Felisa, with the Mediterranean Sea in the middle, and the left and right sides of his head sticking out like horns. The appearance of all crooked melons and cracked dates is horrible to see. Ian dare not look at it again. I don't know how Master Cow's hero accepted his apprentices. Fortunately, in this miserable picture, there is the only bright spot, that is, Kuina, who is standing at the first place in the opposite column. Kuina, the daughter of Mr. Cow's hero. With big clear eyes, sassy black short hair, dressed as a man, has a stubborn and fierce aura, she looks so outstanding among a group of little kids. When Ian looked over, Kuina just happened to look over. Although he didn't speak, he turned towards Ian Viviisho, which made Ian seem to hear Kuina's usual voice calling him again in a trance, "Brother Ian." As an orphan adopted by Master Cow's hero, Ian is a few months older than Kuina. In the dojo, Kuina is the strongest, even the eldest Ian can't beat her, but even so, she keeps calling Ian as the older brother. So even if Ian takes over as the original owner now, he still loves her very much. Although stubborn, Kuina has always been a well-educated child. The voice of Master Cow's hero came from his ears, and the sword-swinging practice began. Ian put away his mind and began to wave the bamboo sword in his hand according to Koshiro's command. Cut! 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 Ian was seriously practicing sword swinging, and as he swung the bamboo sword in his hand, there was a voice that kept ringing in his mind. You have done sword swinging practice, basic swordsmanship proficiency +1. You have done sword swinging practice, basic swordsmanship proficiency +1. You have done sword swinging practice, basic swordsmanship proficiency +1. You have done sword swinging practice, basic swordsmanship proficiency +1. When I first watched One Piece/King of Pirates, Ian used to be excited about the battle, and he also burst into tears because of the feelings between the protagonists, but if you put these aside, One Piece/King of Pirates, the world is actually full of darkness and cruelty. Ian's body is not very talented. Although he has studied kendo with Chaos Hero for so many years, he has not made any progress. If it continues like this, Ian is thinking, why don't you just live peacefully in Shimotsuki village? Fortunately, when he came to this world to practice swordsmanship for the first time, Ian found a little more in his mind. Maybe it was the reason why the game was smashed while playing online. Ian found that the game he was playing at that time was actually engraved in his soul and came to this world with him. It's funny, this mobile game is a messy game downloaded by Ian, and it is a typical copycat mobile game. This mobile game is a card game. Players have a protagonist character. At the same time, they can also draw cards to assemble their own team and fight. The cards come from various anime and games. There are all kinds of characters. There is a feeling of chaos. Ian saw a lot of familiar characters in this game at first, so he felt a little interesting to play, but unexpectedly, after the game has mutated, it has become the capital of his own life. Enjoying Part 1 so far? This is only the beginning. Part 2 and the rest of the story are available on Patreon. Go to Patreon and search for my page to continue the story. Now, let's continue. Chapter 2 Bear Kids Come to Play Hall. Name, Ian. Level 1. Deo Strength, 7. Strength, 5. Speed, 5. Life, 10. Read, 0. Skill, Basic Swordsmanship Proficiency, 23014/100000. Cards, none. This is what Ian saw in his mind, his own attribute. It took him a long time to understand the function of this attribute. It seems that some changes have taken place in the game system. In the original game, the standard for measuring strength was combat power, but now it has become the value of Deo Force, which is exactly the same as the measurement standard in the world of One Piece/King of Pirates. According to Ian his memory, if his Deo strength reaches 10, it is the standard of an ordinary marine soldier, but now he is only 7, which seems to be slightly better than Zhanwuji, which is probably the reason for practicing kendo all year round. And life value should be how much damage you can bear. Needless to say, once it is 0, it will be dead, and the last reading is more interesting. When he read pirate comics before, he kept thinking, how do characters like Thor Enel show their abilities? Or what is it based on? Enel's tricks, Wanlei, Thunder Dragon, Billion-Volt Thor, that kind of supernatural phenomenon can't be summed up by a simple devil fruit, but when Ian sees the energy value, it's only a little bit. Suddenly. That should be the embodiment of the ability of mind. The devil fruit gives people only a certain aspect of mind ability, and this mind ability can become stronger and stronger with the exercise of people, including the latter haki too. In this way, it should also belong to a kind of application of mind, so there is a saying that devil fruit is not strong or weak, the difference is only exercise, and some people who have not eaten devil fruit, such as Eagle Eye, Red Hair, the same they can also rely on haki, and they are so powerful. These are nothing more than their powerful thoughts. Now Ian has telekinetic energy, but the value is 0, which means that his telepathy ability is in a state that has not been activated, and he has no idea how to obtain telematics energy. The only skill he has now is basic swordsmanship. At present, he doesn't know the use of this basic swordsmanship. He can only practice step by step, so even after 3 months, his proficiency is only more than 20,000 points, and looking at the proficiency value, I am afraid that it will take 100,000 points to see the change. As for the cards, Ian felt speechless. He was able to find the card shop in the system, but tragically found that he couldn't draw cards at all. Because of the money. Want a lot of money? It takes 500 diamonds to draw cards, but you can get 500 diamonds by recharging 100,000 Baileys. The ratio is as high as 200:1. This is the first time Ian has seen such an outrageous recharge. 500 Bailey given by Master Chaos Hero every month. There is no expense in this small village. Except for buying newspapers from time to time, he saves as much as he can, but the distance is 10 won Bailey is still a long way off. This way of asking for money is consistent with the original game. Specifically, you can play even if you don't have money, but if you want to play well, you must be a local tyrant, typically without money. Play your paralyzed, typical game of pit money. If this is the only case, then it is difficult to say when Ian can save enough money to draw a card once. But the good thing is that anyone who has played this kind of card game knows that you can draw cards by saving time. Card. In the store, there is a countdown in the draw option, but the countdown time of 48 hours in the past has now become 100 days. When I saw this countdown, Ian almost collapsed. Nima, is this forcing me to recharge or something? It's a good thing to have a system, but it's frustrating if you don't use it for the time being, so since this time, Ian has been living a dull life. Fortunately, the time is still quite messy, and it's been 3 months in a blink of an eye. Time has passed, and the time for the first card draw is getting closer and closer, which makes Ian look forward to it. Since he came to this world, no matter what, he wants to go around and experience this strange world, and in order to get out of this small Shimatsuki village, he must become stronger. In this world, only the strong can. There is a stage. There were 500 times of swinging the sword. When the command of Master Chaos Hero was finished, Ian was out of breath. He practiced very seriously all the time. After going out, the physical strength naturally wears out very quickly. After all, this body is only a 10-year-old boy. 500 sword swinging exercises brought 500 points of basic swordsmanship proficiency. While Ian was checking the progress of his proficiency in his mind, he suddenly heard Chaos Hero say, "The following is the battle practice, Ian, Kuina. You two come first." When Ian heard it, his scalp tingled. Why did he come again? He naturally didn't know Koshiro's thoughts. In the past 3 months, Chaos Hero found that Ian's practice had become more serious than before, so he wanted to test it to see how much progress Ian had made. The method of testing is naturally to fight, but the problem is that Kuina is much stronger than Ian. Every time Ian fights with her, he is beaten up. Good or not? Like Kuina, Ian is usually very clean and tidy, unlike those dirty little kids with runny noses in the dojo, so Kuina is happy to play with Ian, but play is play. Once you become an opponent to fight, Kuina doesn't know how to release water. Although she is a girl, she has a stronger personality than some boys. Every time she fights, she comes for real. Bravely stood up, Ian held a bamboo sword in both hands. The tip of the sword was slanted upward, and it crossed Kuina's bamboo sword, ready to fight. Chaos Hero shouted and started. Kuina immediately shouted, retracted the sword with both hands, raised it over the top, and slashed towards Ian at a very fast speed. Ian blocked with the sword, but was shocked by the huge force on the bamboo sword, and his hands shook. Before he could push the bamboo sword back, Kuina's next blow came again. Kuina's kendo talent is recognized as the number 1 in the dojo. Her sword can be used freely and fast, and she can find Ian's neutral to attack him every time. In just half a minute, the two have played against each other dozens of times, and every time Ian tried his best to resist them, and he couldn't fight back at all. Ha! Kuina became more and more brave, and suddenly a straight stab directly hit Ian's wrist, and then the bamboo sword slammed up and knocked the sword in Ian's hand into the air. Damn, lost again. Ian was a little discouraged. However, Kuina happily said to Ian, "Brother Ian, your recent progress is very obvious. It's much stronger than before. Just comfort me." Ian rolled his eyes and rubbed his wrist, where he was hit by Kuina, and it still hurts. Kuina is right. Master Chaos Hero said with a harmless smile, "Ian, you have indeed become a lot stronger." Said this, the other children in the dojo looked at Ian with admiration. In their opinion, being able to fight with Kuina for so long is indeed very powerful. If it was them, they might have been defeated in a few seconds. Seeing the adoring eyes of these little brats, Ian felt so heartbroken. He would rather not have such adoration. At this moment, an arrogant voice suddenly came from outside the dojo. "Is there anyone? I'm here to play in the gym. Come out, the awesome guy, and have a showdown with me." Ian moved inwardly and looked towards the door, only to see a child with a leaf in his mouth and his chest in his arms, standing at the door of the dojo. The sun shines from behind him, making people see his mess at a glance. The green hair, and the unruly raised eyebrows. He just stood there, looking like an arrogant stinky fart. Green algae head, Roranoa Zoro. Ian recognized him, and only felt a trance in his mind, although he learned that this village is called Shimotsuki Village, his master is Kao's hero, and his sister is Kuina. At that time, Ian was already mentally prepared, but when he saw Zoro really appearing in front of him, Ian still felt unreal for a while. The moment Ian saw Zoro, he didn't think of Zoro who was so cool with haki in the future, but looked at Kuina in a frenzy in his heart. The appearance of Zoro means that Kuina will die soon. My junior sister, is she going to die? Ian was in a mess. Although he had just been defeated by Kuina and was almost beaten up again, he felt his heart and asked, can he really watch Kuina die in front of his eyes? This is not a cartoon character, but a person who lives in front of his eyes. For the children of Kao's Hero Dojo, Kuina is their goddess, including Ian. Kuina's manliness, but this is her unique beauty, although when she fights with anyone, she doesn't care. Show mercy, but then care and love every injured person, give them medicine and comfort them, just like a gentle sister. After getting along for 3 months, Ian already had an indescribable love for his sister, so for a while, his eyes on Zoro became complicated. Although Kuina's death has nothing to do with Zoro, she died unexpectedly, but it is undeniable that the appearance of Zoro means that Kuina's death is approaching. This made Ian not knowing how to face Zoro at all. No one knew about Ian's complicated mood. After hearing Zoro's arrogant declaration of kicking the gym, Master Kao's hero let out a hearty laugh, got up and walked to the door, smiling at Zoro and saying, "It turned out to be here to kick the gym." "Yes? It's rare these days." "Humph." Zoro held up his hands and said proudly, "Don't underestimate me if you think I'm a child, I'm unmatched in the next village." "Alright then, let's accept your challenge," Master Kao's hero said with a smile. "If I win, take away your dojo's signboard," Zoro said. Kao's hero asked him with a smile, "What if you lose?" "Lose? If you lose, then, join you." Hearing Zoro's answer, Kao's hero laughed again, "That's it, then." Ian. Hearing Master Kao's hero calling his name, Ian came back to his senses. But then immediately fell into surprise again. "No, isn't it? Shouldn't it be called Kuina to fight him? How come it's called me?" Third chapter. Don't fight idiots. Kidding me and Zoro? Ian only felt that countless grass mud horses ran through his heart. This plot is not good, okay. Although Ian knows that Zoro is not good at any swordsmanship at all, the so-called battle is just like a child's fight. Good for a meal, but the problem is not counted like that. If it was done by himself, how would the bond between Zoro and Kuina appear? Without Kuina, how can Zoro become stronger without admitting defeat? The difference between losing to a boy and losing to a girl is completely different. Feeling that this is not the time for me to play, Ian shook his head very simply and said, "I won't fight him." Kao's hero gave Ian a strange look, not understanding what he was thinking, but he didn't say anything. Since Ian refused, it was the same to call Kuina. Kuina was very obedient, and after hearing Kao's hero's voice, she stood up and said, "Yes, my father." As soon as Zoro saw Kuina, he was furious and shouted at Kao's hero, "What? Didn't you come to be my opponent? Chaos Hero smiled and said, although Kuina is a girl, she is more powerful than adults in the dojo. Zoro looked at Kuina depressed for a while, and finally had to say, I see, come on. Then, please come inside. Chaos Hero finished, turned, and walked in. Zoro and Kuina followed Chaos Hero into the dojo. Because I heard that Zoro was here to kick the gym, as Kojiro's disciples, Ian, and the other disciples had already sat cross-legged in the dojo. Except for Ian, everyone else looked at Zoro with curiosity. There is also resentment. No way, Zoro at this time is too stinky, and Master Chaos Hero actually took it seriously and allowed his request to kick the gym, and I don't know what he thought. In the corner of the dojo, there was a bucket containing bamboo swords. Chaos Hero pointed to the bucket and said to Zoro, choose a weapon, you can use any weapon. Really? Zoro spat out the leaves in his mouth, walked over with a clatter, and held out a large bamboo sword. Then, this guy held 3 sticks in his left hand, 3 sticks in his right hand, and 3 sticks in his mouth. He was ready, and everyone in the dojo looked at him dumbfounded. Followed Chaos Hero to the altar. When he bowed his head to the altar, a bamboo sword fell from Zoro's mouth. But this guy's expression is still serious. What? This guy is like an idiot. The younger brothers in the dojo looked at him like a fool. Ian was also speechless for a while. The title of the idiot with green algae head has been around since childhood. After the salute, the duel between Zoro and Kuina also began, but there was no suspense. Zoro was defeated very quickly. Kuina's first slash directly hit Zoro with 2 bamboo swords to resist, and then the momentum Shen's second slash completely shook all the bamboo swords in Zoro's hand. But... damn! Zoro looked at Kuina's calm face, and reluctantly got up on the ground, picked up the 2 bamboo swords that had fallen, and took a stance to face Kuina. Hey! Chaos Hero was a little surprised when he saw this scene. He didn't expect Zoro to be so resilient, and even have the courage to fight in the face of the huge gap in strength with Kuina. Kuina was also a little surprised, because Zoro's current posture turned out to be a standard Erdao style stance, so she asked aloud, have you learned Erdao style swordsmanship? No way. Zoro said viciously, today is my first time holding a bamboo sword. First time? Master Chaos Hero repeated with a smile on his face. Ian knew what Master Chaos Hero was thinking. The first time he took a bamboo sword, he was able to pose as a 2-sword swordsman without a teacher. Zoro's green algae-headed idiot, with his talent in swordsmanship, is probably the same as Kuina's. Comparable. At this time, Zoro didn't know what Chaos Hero and Ian were thinking, and he was staring at Kuina closely. Damn, I am very strong, and I will become stronger in the future. How could it be possible to lose to a woman here? With unconvinced thoughts, Zoro yelled, rushed towards Kuina, and then he was slashed in the face by Kuina with a slashing sword. Okay, it looks so painful. The disciples of the dojo couldn't help but tremble after seeing this scene. Why doesn't he hide? Blah blah blah. Zoro fell, and the ground shook twice. Ian covered his face for a while. This idiot was like a wild boar, rampaging, thinking he could beat Kuina by brute force? There is no technical content at all, so it's strange if you don't lose. 1 point. That's it. Master Chaos Hero made a sound to end the competition, and Zoro, the green algae-headed idiot, could no longer hear him. He was lying on the ground with a red mark on his face, and Kuina stuck the bamboo sword in him. In front of him, he said, obviously you are a layman and want to play 2 swordsmanship, you are still 10 years early. Zoro woke up and turned around. Hearing this, he couldn't help grasping Kuina's bamboo sword, still unconvinced. Kuina frowned and said, why, do you want to compete again? However, what I didn't expect was that this guy Zoro was also a bachelor, saying, damn, if you lose, you lose. Master Cow's hero smiled and praised, "It's very simple, not bad. Then, I'll join you. Do you have any comments?" Zoro sat up and asked Cow's hero with his arms folded. "No." Cow's hero shook his head, recognizing him as a disciple. Kuina ignored him, turned around and wanted to leave, but at this moment, Zoro suddenly said, "I will practice hard, and then I will definitely beat you. You remember it for me." When I said this, there was still a nosebleed on the nose of the green algae head idiot. "There won't be such a day," Kuina said with a cold face, turned and left. "Ian, take him down and treat his injuries," Cow's hero said. Ian nodded, got up and walked to Zoro's side, saying, "Come with me." Zoro guessed that his nose was sore, so he didn't have a stubborn temper, and followed Ian away obediently. In the back wing, Ian found the medicine, wiped off Zoro's nosebleed, and then took out cotton wool to plug his nostrils. "Who is that woman?" Zoro asked Ian. "She is Kuina, the daughter of Master Cow's hero." Ian replied, "My sister, your future sister." "Humph! I wouldn't call him senior sister." Zoro snorted angrily with his hands in his arms, "I will defeat her sooner or later." With 2 balls of cotton stuffed in his nose, he looked cute when he said this. Ian smiled, didn't speak, just concentrated on wiping the potion for Zoro. In fact, he didn't know what to say to Zoro. However, he didn't want to talk to Zoro, but it didn't mean that Zoro didn't talk to him. The green algae-headed idiot didn't know what to think, and suddenly said to Ian, "Hey, and you? Why didn't you fight me before?" Ian thought for a long time before saying to him seriously, "Because I don't fight with idiots." "What did you say?" Zoro immediately frowned. "Who are you calling an idiot?" "You." Ian said, "If I'm not mistaken, you got lost here, right?" Zoro was shocked. "You, how did you know?" Ian sighed, "How do I know? Of course I know, Zoro, your biggest impression is Liu Qi, okay? Liu Kai's name is more famous than your swordsmanship." Ian dared to slap his chest to make a promise. This guy came to the dojo to challenge the gym. It was definitely a temporary intention. It is estimated that he got lost here, and then saw a dojo, so he thought of coming in to challenge, and he was in a mess. After getting the medicine, Ian patted Zoro's head and said, "You have a good rest." "But... damn. You're obviously not much older than me, so why do you treat children like this?" Zoro frowned again. "To me, you are a child now." Thinking like this, Ian turned his head and left the room. Zoro looked at his back and thought that this man named Ian was so mysterious, why would he know that he was lost? "You obviously never saw him?" In this way, Zoro settled in the dojo and officially became Kojiro's disciple. Early the next morning, Ian got up before dawn, went outside the dojo, and began to practice sword swinging. To be honest, although he used to practice swords very seriously in the past, he only did it during group practice, and he never practiced alone. However, after seeing the defeat between Zoro and Kuina yesterday, he was still unconvinced. I don't know why it touched Ian a lot. It is not without reason that a person can become a strong person. Compared with Zoro, Ian found that he lacked a belief. When he slept last night, he thought about it all night, and finally realized that even if he had no talent, he had a system to make up for it, but if he didn't have faith and perseverance, then he probably wouldn't be able to become a real powerhouse no matter what. The appearance of Zoro aroused Ian's competitive spirit. He felt that he couldn't let a child who was new to swordsmanship compete. So for the first time, Ian started early training. The goal this morning: swing the sword 1,000 times. Ian held the wooden knife in his hand and began to wave it rhythmically. Every time he swings today, it is very slow, completely different from the practice in the dojo. The so-called swinging of the sword is not that simple. According to what Master Cow's hero said, the real swinging of the sword is not just for appearance, but in every swing, concentrate your energy on swinging the sword, and go carefully. Experience the rhythm of every swing of the sword, the strength of the sword, and let this swing of the sword become a memory of the muscles and an existence like an instinct. It took a whole hour, but Ian hadn't even reached the number of 500 sword swings. At this moment, he was sweating like rain, his muscles began to tremble, and his arms were as heavy as lead. There has always been a voice in his heart, telling him that he can't hold on anymore, or just stop here. However, as soon as he remembered Zoro's face, Ian regained his energy again, endured the pain, and continued to swing his sword. Persist in. Hold on a little longer, you can do it. At this moment, Ian, who was completely focused on swinging his sword, did not notice one thing, that is, the system prompts that kept ringing in his mind. You are engrossed in your sword swing practice, and your basic swordsmanship proficiency is +5. You are engrossed in your sword swing practice, and your basic swordsmanship proficiency is +5. You are engrossed in your sword swing practice, and your basic swordsmanship proficiency is +5. You are engrossed in your sword swing practice, and your basic swordsmanship proficiency is +5. Chapter 4 First Card. Cow's hero lifted the quilt, got up from the bed, took his glasses and put them on. Vivi yawned and walked out of the room. He originally wanted to go out to wash up, but after walking out the door, he saw that Kuina was lying on the back of the pillar looking at something, so he walked over out of curiosity. Just as he was about to ask, he saw that Kuina turned around, raised his finger and snorted at himself, and said in a low voice, "Father, be quiet, don't disturb big brother Ian." Cow's hero stuck his head out, and immediately saw Ian sweating like rain on the field. The morning sun shines on Ian, dripping sweat reflects the sun's rays, the muscle outline that has been revealed by Vivi, exudes the beauty of strength. Cow's hero can see that Ian is very tired at this time, and as he was gasping for breath, but his sword swinging movement still did not stop. "Brother Ian, what happened? This is the first time I saw him practice early." Kuina asked curiously. Cow's hero Vivi smiled. Although he didn't know what was going on, he knew that Ian's practice today was more serious than ever. "Don't disturb him, you can practice in another place," Cow's hero said. Kuina nodded, clenched her fist and said, "Brother Ian is also working hard to become stronger, I can't slack off." Ian is also immersed in his own world at this time. In fact, his mind is completely blank at this moment, and a strong sense of fatigue strikes, making him completely confused, and the reason why he can keep swinging his sword. Actions are completely subconscious actions. He didn't even know how many times he had swung his sword. If no one came to disturb him, it is estimated that he would be able to practice until he lost his strength, but at this moment, a squeaking voice suddenly came, "Ah! You are so treacherous! You didn't even wait for me to start practicing." Ian woke up from the erratic, turned his head to look, but found that it was Zoro, who was looking at himself angrily with two bamboo swords in his hands. Sweat dripped from his cheeks. Ian wiped it off, panting, "What treacherous? I don't remember that I need to call you." This guy Zoro looked at Ian for a while, then pointed at him suddenly and said, "You are also a powerful guy, right? Come and have a showdown with me. This kid is a challenge madman." Ian didn't want to pay attention to him at first, but he shouted and rushed up. When he saw his aggressive posture, Ian subconsciously slashed at him. "Bah! Hit the front, hit directly in the face." Exactly the same as when Kuina hit him yesterday. Zoro's nose, which was just a little bit, was bleeding again. The current Zoro, if you ignore his ruthlessness, he is completely a rookie in swordsmanship. Ian has practiced the basic swordsmanship for so long, and it is not surprising that he can beat him. For a moment, Ian found that his sword strike seemed to be a little different from before. Although it was a subconscious reaction, the speed and strength were perfect. What's even more outrageous is that at this moment, he heard the voice in his mind. Defeat your opponent and gain experience plus 50. I quickly checked it in my mind, and found that my basic swordsmanship proficiency has increased by a lot, and even the experience value has increased. With a level, there will naturally be experience points, but Ian had never figured out how to get experience points before. But I didn't expect to figure out until now that it is necessary to defeat opponents to gain growth. No way, when he fought Kuina before, he lost all of them, and he was too embarrassed to start with the runny kids and juniors, so his opponent was always arranged by Master Chaos Hero as Kuina, which caused him to fight. I have never won a battle, so naturally I don't know how to increase the experience value. When Ian was looking at his attributes, Zoro was dealing with his nose. The red mark on his face had not dissipated. Ian added another one today. Damn! That woman is like this, and so are you. Zoro said bitterly while stuffing his nose. Ian shrugged, blame me? Wait and see, I will surpass you sooner or later. Zoro glanced at Ian, walked aside, and started swinging his sword desperately. Well, now there is one more person on his list. Ian looked at the wooden knife in his hand speechlessly. He didn't expect the intersection between himself and Zoro to happen under such circumstances. Raising his head, watching Zoro's sword swing practice, Ian couldn't help but say, "You idiot, you spend so much effort slashing and you don't know how to pull it off." Zoro had just entered the door, and Master Chaos Hero had not taught Zoro any skills, so Zoro's practice at this time was completely random. Hearing Ian's voice, Zoro was stunned for a moment, then stopped and said, "Then what should we do?" Ian shook his head, walked over to support his shoulders, pressed hard on his waist, and said, "Straighten your upper body. Retract your butt, look up, and hold your chest. Put down the other bamboo sword, and you haven't even slashed. For starters, don't even think about using two." Corrected Zoro's movements, and then Ian gave him demonstration movements. These were taught to him by Master Chaos Hero. As the master of the dojo, now Ian taught Zoro, the younger brother. I have to say that Zoro's talent is really amazing. After just teaching it once, he completely remembered it, and his sword-swinging practice became very decent. "Okay, do it yourself." Ian left him and went back to wash up. He was sore and sweaty now. While taking a bath, Ian looked at his attributes and found that his swordsmanship proficiency had risen to 28,000. The sword-swinging practice with full concentration could actually double the increase in proficiency each time. Ian didn't expect it. In fact, the calculation is also true, there must be a difference between the practice with intention and the practice without intention. Looking at the card store again, Ian suddenly found that the countdown to the draw had already reached 0. In other words, Ian can finally draw cards. He had been thinking about what this card was used for, but he had no chance to verify it, and now, he finally got it. Can't wait, Ian wanted to choose to draw, but heard a voice from the system, "When you draw a card for the first time, you will definitely get a 3-star purple card. For the first 10 consecutive draws, you will definitely get a 4-star orange card. Are you sure to draw?" Ian was speechless for a while. It really is a typical card game mode, the first draw and 10 consecutive draws, even the grading of the cards are exactly the same. There is no hope for Ian in the 10th draw. If he wants to have a 10th draw, he must have a million Baileys. Now he can only draw once, still. "Confirm the extraction," Ian said silently. The card is facing away from Ian. After Ian's confirmation, a fantastic star pattern lights up on the back of the card. Then the card is turned over in a burst of light, and then a long-haired samurai appears in Ian's field of vision. This samurai has a handsome face, his head is combed back, and he is wearing a dark red Sengoku-era samurai armor. He holds a samurai sword in his hand. What is interesting is that on his right hand armor, there is actually a samurai sword. Huge flickering eyeballs. You got a 3-star purple card, Hide Manakaizu Meisuk. Chapter 5. If you want to be awesome, please recharge. The character in front of him is too familiar to him. Isn't this the protagonist of the Animusha game, Akakizu Meisuk? How did you get this character? Could it be because he is now learning swordsmanship? However, Ian was also curious about how to use this card, so he tried to check it out. Achieving Zo Meisuk Hideman. Card star, Samsung. Name, Animusha. Level, Level 1. Strength, 50. Speed, 50. Life, 50. Read, 50. Skill, True Flash. The moment the enemy is about to attack you, counterattack at an extremely fast speed and cause huge damage. Bomb Flash. Launch immediately after parrying an attack, counterattack at an extremely fast speed and cause huge damage. Chain Flash. Continue to attack before the flash's attack opportunity expires, which can cause continuous huge damage. Fetters. Get AER. Life plus 32%. Obtain Senran Maru. Strength plus 25%. Get Oda Nobunaga. Read plus 20%. The 3-star card even has 3 skills, but it makes Ian excited, because these 3 skills are the most familiar to Ian. It can be said that the game of Ghost Warriors is just a flash. The card has been drawn. Is it equipped in the card slot? As soon as the system prompted, Ian immediately confirmed it. He really wanted to know how this card character would take effect. When the equipment is confirmed, the screen immediately jumps to the team mode, and the team is connected to his own host character. There are a total of 6 card slots that can be equipped with cards, but now Ian only has 2 card slots unlocked, which is just enough to put Wise on Zo Meiji's card equipment. The rest of the card slots have a small lock hanging on it. According to Ian's estimation, these locked card slots are estimated to be unlocked only when one's own level is raised. This is not the case in general games. After equipping this card of Zo Meiji, Ian immediately noticed his own changes. He found that his attributes had an extra 15 points of strength and 15 points of speed, and the 2 attributes of life and mind were the same, each increased by 15 points. System, equip the card and activate the ability item. This made Ian feel a little surprised. He was still thinking about how to activate this energy value, but it suddenly appeared, which is really a good thing. Ian made the calculations, then asked the system, 3-star cards can get 30% of the card's attributes, is that right? Yes, 1-star cards get 10%, 2-star cards get 20%, and so on. The highest 5-star cards can get 50% attribute bonus. The system replied. Ian expressed his satisfaction and asked, can the card be improved? Yes. Cards have their own levels, and each time the level increases, the card's own attributes will be improved, and at the same time, it will be rewarded to the host according to the corresponding percentage. Cards can also be advanced and become a higher star at the same time. It will also increase the bonus percentage value, which requires the host to cultivate cards. If you recharge diamonds, you can speed up the cultivation. Recharge or something, can I wait until I have money? Ian asked silently, how to advance the card. Get the same character shards, and use the advanced stone to upgrade, the same Samsung card you already have, you can get 30 character shards. Ian checked the advanced items and found that to raise this Wise Zo Meiji to 4 stars, 120 character fragments were needed, which meant that Ian had to collect all 4 of the same cards. This is expected to be a very long process. Ian then looked at the skill item again. This card has 3 skills, so Ian is also full of expectations. However, after looking at it, Ian was a little dumbfounded, and he found that his skills were still just a basic swordsmanship. Can't the skills of the card characters be used? Ian quickly asked the system. The host needs to reach the corresponding basic ability. The system replied. Sure enough, Ian looked at the card that had been equipped in the card slot and found that the skill description at this time had changed. True Flash, at the moment when the enemy is about to attack you, counterattack at an extremely fast speed and cause huge damage, requiring primary swordsmanship skills. Bomb Flash, immediately after parrying an attack, it counterattacks at a very fast speed and causes huge damage. It needs to be activated by intermediate swordsmanship skills. Chain Flash, continue to attack before the flash's attack opportunity expires, which can cause continuous huge damage, and requires advanced swordsmanship skills to activate. And Ian is still only at the basic level of swordsmanship. Depressed withdrew, Ian found that he could only train himself desperately now. In the following time, Ian did not continue to practice, but sat in the dojo to recover his sore and trembling muscles. This is also the method taught to him by Master Cow's hero, focusing on aerobic respiration adjustment, which seems to be able to quickly remove the lactic acid produced in the muscles, and the effect is better than massage or something. Until noon, Kuina brought food to Ian. The dojo where Ian is located is called Yuxin Dojo. The area of the dojo is quite large, but there are only 3 people who live here. The dojo Master Cow's hero is 1, his daughter Kuina is 1, and Ian is 1. There is also Zoji, the junior brother of Master Cow's hero, a middle-aged uncle with a mustache who serves as a teacher in the dojo. When Cow's hero said that Kuina can defeat the adults in the dojo, he actually refers to his junior brother. The 4 of them have been living in the dojo all the time, and the rest of Ian's little brats and juniors are all residents of Shimatsuki village. Every time it is time for dinner, they go home to eat separately. But now, there is one more person who eats in the dojo, and that is Zoro. As the only woman in the dojo, Kuina always cooks the food, and her craftsmanship is not bad. Ian still enjoys it every time. Seeing Kuina coming, Ian smiled at her and got up to help set the tableware. "Where's Masters?" After the two sat down face to face, when they were about to eat, Ian suddenly remembered and asked. "My father's has been delivered." Kuina replied. Ian nodded, didn't say much, and started to eat. In fact, in the past 3 months, Ian has noticed that when Kuina mentions his father Cow's hero, he often addresses him with words like father, but he has never heard her call him dad. 2 different titles naturally represent different degrees of intimacy, so Ian can feel that the relationship between Kuina and Master Cow's hero seems a little distant. After observing this period of time, Ian gradually understood why the father and daughter were like this. Master Cow's hero usually has a harmless smile on his face, and he has an amiable expression no matter who he is, but in his heart, he has always had some traditional thoughts. He always wanted a son to inherit his Yuxin dojo, but unfortunately, Kuina's mother gave birth to a daughter for him. In his opinion, female swordsmen cannot become the strongest due to physical limitations. Cow's hero also loves his daughter Kuina very much, but in his occasional conversations, he can't help but reveal a kind of regret. Kuina is a smart child, and he can naturally feel his father's thoughts. Under the influence of, Kuina gradually began to transform into a boy's character. She started to keep her hair short, began to practice kendo desperately, and made herself stronger and stronger. She even defeated Kojiro's junior and junior brother, and wanted to prove to her father that she could inherit this dojo and inherit Kojiro's ambition. All these are just to gain more love from my father for me. Unfortunately, these performances could not reverse Kojiro's traditional thinking. He still stubbornly believed that a girl could not inherit the dojo. Kuina may not realize this, but Ian, an adult's mind, can easily see it clearly. "Brother Ian, what are you thinking?" Ian lost his mind a bit. He suddenly came back to his senses after hearing Kuina's voice. He looked at Kuina and found that her beautiful big eyes were full of curiosity. "This fish is delicious. Kuina, your craftsmanship has improved again." Ian praised her, taking the opportunity to change the subject. It was given by Uncle Hole, who was fishing in the village. Kuina said sweetly. Only in normal life would she show such a girly smile. The two chatted while eating, and at this moment, a figure suddenly broke into the dojo. Zoro walked in, sweating profusely. It looked like he had just finished practicing, but when he saw the two were having lunch, he immediately shouted, "Ah!" Chapter 6 Running with Liu Qi is hard work. This guy was cooked by himself. Kuina used chopsticks to pick up the rice and put it in his mouth, without even looking at him, said, "Yours is in the kitchen, go get it yourself." Zoro hurried to the back kitchen, and it didn't take long for him to come out with a large plate containing a bowl of spiky rice and a large fish. He put the dinner plate next to the two of them, sat cross-legged on the ground, raised the bowl and shouted, "I'm starting." Then he devoured it with all his might. It looks like he was starving. Humph! Seeing Zoro like this, Kuina couldn't help but snorted coldly, "The guy who eats free food, dare to eat so much." The children in the dojo came here to learn kendo, and they paid tuition fees. Although not many, they were also the source of income for the dojo. As disciples, the only two in the dojo did not pay tuition fees, one was Ian, and the other was newly joined Zoro under the door. However, the property of the dojo also includes a field, which is used to grow food, so Ian also helps the dojo to plant the land or something, and he is not considered free food. Hearing Kuina's words, Zoro was stunned for a long time, then got up, with rice still hanging from the corner of his mouth, but suddenly bowed in place and said to Kuina solemnly, "I'm sorry, I will help the dojo in the future." After saying this, the guy sat down with peace of mind and continued to eat, as if he didn't pay any attention to what Kuina said just now. Ian was speechless for a while. This green algae-headed idiot is not an ordinary neurotic. Kuina's sarcasm didn't work, so he could only poke his own rice a few times, which made Ian want to laugh. After the meal, Zoro was already lying on the ground in an unimpressive manner, patted his belly and said, "I'm full, I'm full." Kuina got up and wanted to clear the plate, but at this moment, Zoro stood up and said to Kuina, "Since we are full, let's have a showdown." Originally Kuina didn't want to pay attention to him, but Ian said at this time, "I'll clean up the dinner plate, you come clean him." After speaking, without giving Kuina a chance to speak, he got up and put the three plates together, and walked towards the back kitchen with a smirk. He knew exactly what was coming next, and if he remembered correctly, Zoro, the idiot, would have been living in Kuina's shadow, with the 2001-0-0 record. So, the next step is the process of Zoro being madly abused by Kuina. How could Ian let the small dinner plate be delayed and miss this good show? Sure enough, when Ian came out again, Zoro and Kuina were already playing together. Compared with yesterday's battle, Zoro's moves today are no longer random, and he has learned the stance that Ian gave him in the morning. But this alone is not enough. There are still problems with the timing and strength of his shot. After a while of attacking, Kuina caught the flaw. The bamboo sword in his hand stabbed forward and hit Zoro in the stomach, directly hitting him. "Gotta fly out." Ian saw clearly, Zoro's eyes bulged out. Cough cough. Lying on the ground, Zoro almost vomited out the bitter gall water, but he was still so unwilling in his eyes after coughing for a while. Ian originally intended to see the joke, but after seeing Zoro's eyes, he couldn't laugh. Yes, it is such a look that will never give up. Thinking of this, Ian stood up, walked up to Kuina, and said, "Kuina, do you still have strength?" Kuina taught Zoro a small lesson, and really wanted to leave, but Ian stood up at this time. After being stunned for a while, she replied, "Of course." "Then, have a fight with me," Ian said seriously. "It's rare, brother Ian, you actually challenge me." Kuina suddenly laughed. After hearing this, Ian also felt a little panicked. He had never challenged Kuina on his own before. However, since the card was drawn, he also wanted to see how much help this card could bring him. Seeing that the two were going to confront each other, Zoro stopped coughing, hurried to the side to make way, and sat down to watch. In the arena, Ian and Kuina were standing face to face, holding bamboo swords and staring at each other closely, sensing the tiny movements of each other's whole body. When Ian saw Kuina's shoulder Vivi swaying, he secretly said, "Here." Next second, Kuina was already rushing towards him, and the steps under her feet moved very fast, but unfortunately, Ian's reaction was faster. Without thinking, he stabbed directly in the direction where Kuina was rushing. Sword. The speed of this sword was beyond Kuina's imagination. She quickly staggered, and the bamboo sword swept across, blocking Ian's attack. Afterwards, the two of you came and went and started to attack each other. The clatter of bamboo swords kept ringing, blocking and counter-attacking, and they fought a dozen times in an instant. The offense and defense between the two actually don't have many gorgeous moves. Professor Kojiro's kendo doesn't have any special sword moves. In fact, over the years, whether it's Kuina or Ian, all they've learned are basic moves. However, it was these basic actions that made the duel between the two so intense that Zoro, who was watching the battle next to him, was almost dumbfounded. Evenly matched. Ian could feel that he was tied with Kuina for the first time. He found a huge change in himself. His shooting speed and reaction speed have increased, and every time he swings the sword, he is more powerful, although the sudden increase in power makes Ian seem a little bit more retractable. It is not easy to grasp, but it is undeniable that the increase in strength has caused a lot of trouble for Kuina. It's just that the violent action brought a huge amount of physical exertion. After fighting for a while, Ian and Kuina stopped at the same time. "Brother Ian, your progress is amazing." Kuina took this opportunity to ask him curiously, "Yesterday you still lost to me, how did you do it? You won't always be let me have it?" "No." Ian shook his head. He didn't dare to admit it. With Kuina's self-esteem, if he dared to admit that he kept letting her go, maybe she would turn her head and stop caring about him, so he explained, "Then it's because I practice more seriously than ever, so I'm better than ever." "Really?" Kuina suddenly remembered the scene of Ian's morning exercise in the morning. That concentration cannot be deceived, so he immediately accepted Ian's statement. "It's a tie, is that okay?" Ian wiped his sweat and said, "I'm running out of energy." Kuina was still a little unwilling. Like Zoro, she is actually a strong child. She has been invincible in the village since she was a child, and she will not be willing to fail, but seeing Ian say this, she can only stop. Fortunately, a tie is not a failure, right? Kuina left. Ian stood there panting, looking down at his sweaty palms, thinking, maybe physical training and strength training should be put on the agenda. Although the time with Kuina is very short, but he is able to perceive his own lack of physical strength, and since the strength and speed bonuses brought to him by cards are very direct, he must also adapt to these changes as soon as possible. The current attributes show that his strength and speed are both 20, and his Deo force value has also increased a bit, reaching 14 points, that is to say, if he can fully utilize his attributes, it can already be compared to a standard marine. Soldiers are stronger. However, it's still crap. Thinking like this, Ian suddenly found someone pulling his sleeve, looked down, and found that it was Zoro. The current Ian is a 10-year-old child, and Zoro is younger, which makes Ian a head taller than Zoro. He looks down at Zoro, and Zoro looks up at him. "What's the matter?" Ian asked him. "Brother Ian, can you teach me? I want to beat that woman," Zoro said. This was the first time I heard Zoro call me like that, probably because of the battle with Kuina just now. Ian was inexplicably excited about this name. Hearing Zoro's proposal, Ian was also a little moved. Although he didn't want to admit it, the appearance of Zoro really stimulated Ian. If I could exercise with him, I would be very motivated by Zoro. A big boost, right? That's good. Start tomorrow, you and I will exercise together. Ian responded quickly. Master Cao's hero, the master of Yuxin Dojo, did not personally teach his disciples. Most of the time, his junior disciples did the work for him. Even Ian, a formal disciple who entered the house, rarely saw him take action. Strength, Ian always thought it was a mystery, so Zoro followed him and taught him by himself. It didn't seem to matter. So, the next day, when Ian got up in the morning to exercise, there was a small tail behind him. Run first. Seeing Zoro looking at himself, Ian could only bite the bullet and teach, follow me, let's run around the village first. Zoro nodded vigorously. Ian turned around and started to run, but before he ran a few steps, he found that Zoro hadn't followed. Looking back, I found that the idiot Zoro ran out in the opposite direction. Come back! You big idiot! Ian roared with blue veins on his forehead, you can lose it if you are so close. Zoro heard the shout and turned around quickly, trying to keep up. However, just in the sight of Ian's gaze, this guy just ran 2 steps, and suddenly made an inexplicable turn. Ian doesn't even know how to complain. He has grown up since he was a child. He is the #1 lunatic in history, and his reputation is well deserved. Chapter 7 Swordsmanship Improvement. Ian felt so tired. He didn't know if it was a mistake to take Zoro to exercise together. Running around the village, Ian corrected the direction of this idiot a total of 128 times. The morning was spent in Ian's roar. After the run was finally over, Ian took him to a grove near the sea. The following is the sword-swinging exercise. Ian panted and said, after the sword-swinging exercise, let's do the strength exercise. It is another 1,000 times of swinging the sword, and every time I have to pay full attention to experience it, but I don't know if I am gradually getting used to it. After Ian finished swinging the sword, he found that the muscles in his arms were not as weak as yesterday. Ian completed the sword-swinging practice first, then he found some ropes, tied 2 large rocks weighing dozens of pounds with ropes, then found a relatively strong tree, and threw the ropes through the branches. Using the branch as a lever, the left and right hands hold a rope respectively, and start to pull up by punching. This is a simple way to exercise equipment, right? When Ian was desperately exercising his strength, Zoro was still doing sword-swinging exercises. After mastering the basic movements of sword-swinging yesterday, Zoro still took 2 bamboo swords and attacked the target tree stump desperately. He came here to go to the dark on the road of the second sword style. Ian didn't care about him. The 2 of them were actually practicing each other now, and they only used each other as an object of encouragement. At most, Ian corrected Zoro's movements from time to time. Zoro's sword-swinging practice was completed, Ian's strength training was coming to an end. It's my turn. Zoro couldn't wait to pick up the rope that Ian had dropped, and imitated Ian to pull it up. For a child, 0.2 kilograms of stones are not easy. Ian looked at Zoro's gritty appearance, suddenly hey isho, and tied a smaller stone with the remaining rope, and then handed it to Zoro past. Here, bite it with your teeth. Then grab it and don't let it fall. Ian said. Why? Zoro asked stupidly, puzzled. You didn't do that just now. Listen to me, you will use it later. Ian gave a mysterious smile. Yes, you will definitely use it in the future, because the road you will take in the future will not be the second sword style, but the third sword style. Thank me, I will help you exercise in advance now, you will have a good mouth. Due to Ian's mischief, Zoro started the exercise of the 3 swords in advance, only to see that he was biting the hanging stone in his mouth, standing upright as much as possible, his arms were pulling the other 2 large stones, and the whole person was stunned. Started to tremble, but held on little by little. Ignoring him, Ian picked up a larger stone, raised his hands above his head, and continued to squat like weights. This is the exercise method he just thought of. It can exercise the strength of the waist, abdomen, and legs, and can effectively train his speed. From the current point of view, his attributes have increased by only 2 points, one is from the bonus of cards, and the other is the improvement of his own level. In addition, Ian is also thinking about whether his attributes still exist. Can you grow through your own exercise? So all the training he does now is actually just groping. There was not much conversation between the two, sweating like rain, and they continued to practice until noon, and finally stopped when they were so sore that they could no longer continue. Lying on their backs on the ground, both of them were breathing heavily. Ian adjusted his breathing, trying to recover his strength as soon as possible. I don't know how long it took, he was finally able to get up and was about to call Zoro. But I found out that this guy was actually asleep. This sleepiness problem, has it been open since childhood? Ian shook his head helplessly, carried Zoro on his back, and then slowly moved towards the dojo step by step. What the two of them didn't know was that Kuina appeared a little above the mountainside where they were exercising, also full of exhaustion and sweat, but when she looked at the exercise site of Ian and Zoro below, her eyes were full of stubbornness. After lunch and rest, Ian brought Zoro to the field of the dojo, waving a hoe and started to work, and at night, he began to continue exercising. The middle, Zoro would go to Kuina to challenge every time he got an opportunity, but unfortunately, he was taught by Kuina every time. Strange to say, obviously now Ian and Kuina can draw a tie. Ordinarily, fighting with Ian is the same as fighting with Kuina, but Zoro rarely challenges Ian, he is more with Ian. They practiced together, but they never tire of challenging Kuina, even if they were repaired badly every time, but they went back after the injury was healed. This happened at least 3 or 4 times a day. This time, Ian wondered if this product was a product. Hidden trembling M. What Ian doesn't know is that Zoro, a stubborn idiot, has a very simple idea. For Ian, who has been taking his own exercises to become stronger, Zoro positions him as a senior and a big brother, but for Kuina, he is positioned as an opponent. Different positions naturally lead to differences in treatment. Usually, it is normal to be beaten by a senior brother occasionally, but if you are beaten by an opponent, it is unbearable. Except when challenging Kuina, Zoro followed Ian almost inseparably, and just like Zoro was not willing to lose to Kuina, Ian was not willing to be compared by this guy who was 2 years younger than him, and the two worked hard together. Efforts to become stronger, which in turn stimulated Kuina, secretly continued to practice. An inexplicable competition formed between the three. Kao's hero naturally saw this scene in his eyes, but he didn't stop him in any way, and let it go with a smiling expression. Just like that, more than a month passed. In this month's time, Ian's body has undergone tremendous changes. His muscles have begun to take shape. Although he looks a little thin due to the child's body, the momentum of that kind of power has begun to radiate. His conjecture has been verified, self-exercise can also improve one's own attributes. However, this kind of improvement is relatively slow. Take strength training as an example. If he has 20 points of strength and can lift 100 pounds under the limit, then if he wants to gain strength attributes again, he must break this. The limit is to lift a weight of 110 pounds or more, and every time the limit is exceeded, it will bring a 1-point increase in strength. After more than a month, Ian continued to increase the weight of the stone for exercise, but only increased his strength by 3 points. It's very slow, but it's a supplement to Ian becoming stronger. After all, in the peaceful little village of Shimatsuki, there are no bandits, let alone enemies. The only opponents Ian can usually find are Kuina and Zoro. That's it. Other than that, he couldn't find anyone who could increase his experience. However, Kuina couldn't beat him. He was tied at most and didn't get experience. Zoro could beat him, but he gave too little experience, only 50 points each time. That's it, and now it takes 1000 experience points to upgrade from level 1 to level 2. It's impossible to beat him every day, right? That is to say, in a short period of time, Ian's level cannot be greatly improved. If he can't level up, his cards can't be improved. He has asked the system, and the level of cards cannot exceed the host's own graded. Therefore, the only way to increase attributes is to exercise on your own. Fortunately, after more than a month of unremitting practice, his basic swordsmanship proficiency was finally full. How should I put it, this feeling is amazing. When the basic swordsmanship proficiency is full and upgraded to the primary swordsmanship, when Ian holds the bamboo sword in his hand, he suddenly finds that his body memory feels completely different about the sword. Without a trace of obstruction and stagnation, the bamboo sword in his hand no longer feels like a foreign tool in the past. It is like a part of the body when held in the hand, and it can actually be controlled like an arm. Perhaps thanks to long-term and persistent practice, the improvement of swordsmanship was completed so naturally, and the bottleneck did not appear in Ian's imagination. This should be a sublimation process from quantitative change to qualitative change, right? Ian thought so. Primary swordsmanship, you have a qualitative understanding of the way of the sword, your sword speed plus 10%, destructive power plus 10%. This is the system's description of the attributes of primary swordsmanship. The speed of the sword is easy to understand, but the increase in destructive power makes Ian a little puzzled. Standard. So after thinking about it, Ian can only interpret it as a more serious injury after hitting the opponent. Chapter 8 Big Face Person. The improvement of swordsmanship has brought a slight increase in Deo strength. Now Ian's Deo strength has reached 20 points. In addition, what Ian is most concerned about is that now he can finally use the true flash skill of Shizuo Meiji's card. When he thinks of the handsome flash that killed his opponent when he was playing the Animusha game, Ian felt itchy and unbearable. Can he finally pretend to be forced this time? Gotta find someone to try it out, Ian thought. The first choice, of course, is Kuina, but when he thinks of Kuina, Ian hesitates a little. In a short time, he has also discovered that the strength of personal strength can indeed be judged by Deo strength. In swordsmanship before the realm was raised, Ian had 14 points of Deo strength. With all his strength, he could play a tie with Kuina. Then Kuina's Deo strength value at that time may be around 15 to 17 points, which is in line with her ability to fight. The impression of an adult in the Windojo. And since this time, Ian has also discovered that Kuina is still working hard to become stronger. It is estimated that Ian is still similar to Kuina in terms of Deo strength. However, Ian can now use the secret skill of True Flash. According to the attribute description of this sword move, it may be quite powerful. If one accidentally hits Kuina in the fight, it is very likely that Kuina will be injured. In this village, the only thing Ian didn't want to hurt was Kuina, so he wouldn't use Kuina to try his sword moves. Otherwise, go to the instructor Zyuosuk, or go to Master Kao's hero. Thinking like this, Ian stopped practicing and said to Zoro, who was still holding a stone in his mouth while doing muscle exercises, "You practice hard, I'll go back to the dojo." After hearing Ian's words, Zoro naturally wanted to respond. Just as he was about to open his mouth to agree, the stone fell off and hit his feet. Ouch! With a scream, Zoro was suddenly tragic. This idiot! Ian shook his head speechlessly, ignoring Zoro, who was jumping up and down on his instep, and walked towards the village. After arriving at the dojo, Ian found that the younger brothers and sisters who were supposed to be training were gathering together and discussing something outside the dojo. "Did you see it? That man is so tall. If you want me to say, his face is the biggest." Yeah, it's the first time I've seen someone with such a big face." Ian was curious and asked aloud, "What are you doing around here if you don't go to practice?" Hearing the voice, a group of junior brothers quickly turned their heads, and one of the children with a watermelon head ran over, snot on his face, and asked for credit. "Senior brother Ian, there are outsiders in the village, when we were at the beach today. As you can see, among those people, there is one with a very big face, it's amazing." The other little juniors also nodded, surrounding Ian, chatteringly describing the man. Ian was moved, suddenly remembered something, and asked, "Are there any newspapers? Who got the latest newspapers?" Since I started exercising with Zoro, Ian didn't go to buy a newspaper for Master Cow's hero recently. The job was handed over to other juniors. When he heard his question, one of the bald juniors hurried to the dojo and took out a newspaper was given to Ian. Ian opened the newspaper and saw a huge headline on the front page of the news: "World Noble Saint Chalcoma is about to arrive in the Kingdom of Goa for a visit." Are in East Blue, even in the small village of Shimotsuki, you know that the Goa Kingdom, which can be called the most beautiful country in East Blue, can attract the world's nobles, Tenryubito, to visit it. However, Ian knew that this so-called most beautiful country just hides all the dirty things and excludes some unbeautiful things. This is a model of a segregated society. As soon as I saw the name of Goa Kingdom in the newspaper, Ian suddenly remembered one thing, that is Sabo's early departure to sea. This sick country, for the sake of the cleanliness and beauty of its city, swept all the garbage out of the city, concentrated it outside the city, and drove all the unsightly homeless and unemployed to the mountain of garbage to survive, and then they built a high wall to separate the garbage mountain from the city, forming two different worlds. They call it the indeterminate terminus. On weekdays, they ignore the world of the garbage mountain, as if there is no such place in their own country, but when Tenryubito decided to visit, in order to prevent the odor of the garbage mountain from polluting the air, he chose to put the garbage mountain, burn it clean. They knew that there were many people living there, but they still chose to do it. They never thought about what would happen to those homeless people when they lost the soil on which they lived. They were suffocating and cruel. Although Sabo is an aristocrat in this country, his nature is to yearn for freedom, and he has always wanted to escape from this suffocating place. After learning that Trash Mountain is about to be burned, Sabo has been trying to find a way to inform his two sworn brothers, Luffy and Ace, but he is imprisoned at home by his parents. The life and death of his brother is unknown, but the people in the Goa Kingdom that he saw face to face were indifferent and unconcerned faces. Sabo finally saw the ugliness and hypocrisy of this world. He couldn't bear it, and finally chose after fleeing. He knocked out the guards, left a letter to Luffy and Ace, and took a small boat to sea ahead of schedule. However, unfortunately, the day he went to sea happened to be the time when the world noble Tenryubito arrived. The oncoming big ship, Sabo chose to politely avoid it, and also imagined that one day he could become the captain of such a big ship, galloping across the sea, but he did not expect that his politeness could not be arrogant. The understanding of Tenryubito, unable to allow a pariah to pass by Tenryubito, directly attacked Sabo's ship. In the world of One Piece/King of Pirates, the world government has always regarded pirates as cancers, but in Ian's view, these so-called world nobles Tenryubito are the real cancers. These self-noble Tenryubito can be said to be the ugliest aggregate of human nature. Thinking of this, Ian couldn't help but sigh for a while. If I remember correctly, the man with the big face mentioned by the younger brothers should be the Shemale King Ivankov, right? Ivankov, a cadre of the Revolutionary Army, means that Luffy's father, the Revolutionary Monkey D. Dragon, has also arrived in East Blue, and he should be on his way to Goa Kingdom now. Putting down the newspaper, Ian stood up and asked the younger brothers. "You guys practice hard here, I'll take a look." "Ah, brother Ian, you are so cunning, you didn't even take us." The watermelon-headed child couldn't help shouting. Ian patted his head amusingly and walked out of the dojo. Ivankov came to Shimotsuki village, probably because he was separated from Dragon. Dragon's trip to Goa Kingdom was a secret operation, so it was impossible to bring Ivankov with him. His huge face was so eye-catching that it would be exposed. Ian chose to see Ivankov. First, he was curious to meet the legendary she-male king in person. Second, he also wanted to see if he could meet Dragon. In the world of One Piece/King of Pirates, there are many mysterious characters. Luffy's father Dragon is one of them. No one knows his origin, no one knows his strength. What he plays is a complete behind the scenes the existence of a big boss. Chapter 9 Haki. Ian walked while thinking about it, and when he arrived at the entrance of the village, he saw the person he wanted to see. A group of 7 or 8 people was walking towards the village at this time. The first one was a very tall guy, at least 2 meters above the eye. He was shrouded in a green cloak, but his face could not be covered, and in Ian's sight, Ivankov's face took up half of his body. For Ian, this face is almost the same height as his 10-year-old body. Oh, I'm scared to death. Even though Ian was mentally prepared, he was still startled by this face. Ivankov has thick eye shadows and eyelash lines painted on his eyes, and purple lip gloss on his bloody lips. The whole person looks like a ghost. Ivankov in the comics, I only thought it was exaggerated, but after seeing the real person, Ian only felt afraid of people. No wonder that Dragon didn't take you to the ceremony. Look at your heavy makeup, and with this big face, how blind must you be to not notice you? Ivankov. Ian saw another figure tragically left behind by Dragon. It was a taller man than Ivankov, also wearing a green cloak, but the cap of the cloak had 2 round ears. Uncle Seong, your cute bear-eared hat has completely betrayed you. Do you think people won't recognize you if you wear a cloak? That's right, what followed Ivankov was another cadre of the revolutionaries, Bartholomew Big Bear. At the moment of seeing them, Ian finally knew why he said that Ivankov's companion was a big bear. With their height and unique style, others couldn't match them. Except for the big bear and Ivankov, the rest of the people are not so conspicuous. Although they also look cool in cloaks, it can be seen that they should be ordinary members of the Revolutionary Army. When Ian saw them, they naturally saw Ian too. Who is this black-haired boy? Is it really okay to be seen by a child? Several members of the Revolutionary Army were talking in low voices, but Ivankov didn't care so much, walked up to Ian and looked down at him. Hip-hop. Boy. The katana you're wearing, are you studying at the village dojo? Ian came back to his senses at this time and nodded. Is your dojo called Yuxin Dojo? Ivankov pointed to the cross-embroidered sign of the 2 swords on Ian's chest. I remember it as the name. How do you know? Ian felt a little curious. Do you know Master Cow's hero? Ivankov turned his head and glanced at the big bear behind him, but the big bear showed no expression and was looking at it with a book in his hand, looking very focused. Then Ivankov turned around and said to Ian, that's right. Boy, you know it. Knowing is knowing, what is knowing? Ian was a little puzzled, but he didn't ask much. Can you take us to your dojo? Ivankov asked. Ian's eyes rolled. He didn't know what his Master Cow's hero had to do with the Revolutionary Army. It didn't matter if he took them to his master. Pity. So he nodded and said, yes, but you have to promise me a condition. Ivankov asked curiously, what conditions? Ian looked at the Revolutionary Army soldiers behind him, pointed at them and said, it's very simple, just come and fight with me. What? The few soldiers of the Revolutionary Army were so surprised that they thought they had heard it wrong. One of them even stepped forward, bent over, and touched Ian's head, and said, little devil, don't make trouble, take us to the dojo, okay? I'll give you candy. Oh my go! Even if Master Cow's hero touches my head, how dare you treat me like a child? Ian slapped his hand off, looked at the sword on his waist, and said, well, it's you. The Revolutionary Army soldier was also dumbfounded. He didn't expect the child to be so individual, so he could only look at Ivankov for help. Ivankov glanced at Ian and found that the expression on his face was serious, so he had to say, don't hurt this boy. The Revolutionary Army soldier nodded helplessly, stood where he was. Without drawing a knife, he took a stance and said to Ian, "Okay, come on kid. I don't need a weapon, I just use my fists and punches." Ian didn't talk nonsense, and rushed up holding the bamboo sword. The first time they fought, this Revolutionary Army soldier almost suffered a big loss. He didn't expect Ian's speed to be so fast. In a cold sweat. Ian didn't care so much, the long-term practice in the dojo had made him turn the sword into an instinct. After the Revolutionary Army soldiers avoided it, he immediately seized the opponent's rib space and stabbed with his sword. Out. Able to follow Ivankov's side, even an ordinary soldier has 2 strokes. The Revolutionary Army soldier turned sideways, dodged Ian's attack, raised his leg and kicked at Ian. However, as soon as he was kicked out, he regretted it. He used all his strength this time, and he was forced to be serious by a child? Thinking of this, he unconsciously drew back a little force. However, what he didn't know was that what Ian was waiting for was his fight back. There are conditions to activate the flash skill, that is, it can be activated at the moment when the opponent is about to attack him. If the Revolutionary Army soldier just dodged and didn't fight back, how could Ian use the skill? So seeing the opponent kicking, Ian didn't dodge and stared closely at his movements. When the opponent's foot was about to kick him, Ian wanted to use a flash skill as soon as he was ruthless. I just didn't expect that in the next second, with a bang, he was kicked in the face and flew out. The Revolutionary Army soldier didn't even think that Ian would hit the move, and he was startled after the kick, and hurried over to see Ian. Half of Ian's face hurts to death now, lying on the ground and grinning. He didn't expect that the flash skill would fail to activate, causing himself to be kicked in vain. Damn, this flash skill is more difficult to grasp the timing than imagined. "Are you all right?" the Revolutionary soldier asked with concern. Ian shook his head, stood up from the ground, clenched the bamboo sword again, and said, "Come again." The Revolutionary soldier waved his hand and said, No, if you come again, I'm afraid you will be injured again." "Don't worry, I haven't lost yet. I don't know if it's because of staying with Kuinazoro for a long time." Ian found that he has the spirit of not admitting defeat now. What is such a little pain? Seeing him like this, the soldiers of the Revolutionary Army had no choice but to face Ian's challenge again. Ivankov stood next to him and kept watching, and found it quite interesting. He regarded Ian as a child who wanted to challenge adults. He admired Ian's unyielding spirit. Although Big Bear was holding a book in his hand. But he didn't know whether he was reading a book or watching the battle between Ian and the two. Ian is more serious than before. In fact, at first, he treated these Revolutionary Army soldiers who were background in the comics as trash, thinking that they were not that strong, but now he realized that this is the real world, even if it is a trash fish, but it is actually very strong, at least stronger than a child whose body has not yet fully grown. The two fought again, and the soldiers of the Revolutionary Army found that Ian's shot speed was much faster. He was more and more difficult to hide, so he could only fight back again. He wanted to defeat Ian, and he felt embarrassed to end the game's battle. This time, he didn't dare to kick with his feet, but instead used his fists. The strength of his fists was better than his feet. He didn't want to really hurt Ian. However, Ian, who was in a state of concentration at this time, reacted very sharply. Seeing his fist attacking him, he saw the opportunity to launch a flash skill again. Just as the fist of the Revolutionary Army soldier was about to hit Ian, Ian suddenly disappeared from him. No one could see exactly how Ian's footsteps moved, only to see him instantly appear beside the Revolutionary Army soldier, the bamboo sword raised high, slashing straight down at an incredible speed. The speed of the sword is so fast, with a whistling sound, like an afterimage, a flash of light streaks in the air and hits the backs of the soldiers of the Revolutionary Army fiercely. The revolutionary soldier was a relatively tall adult, but after taking the blow on his back, he only felt a huge force coming. Under this heavy pressure, the bones on his back seemed to whine. The whole body fell down involuntarily, and was hit from standing to lying down by this blow, and at the moment of falling down, he couldn't help but let out a scream. Ivankov, who was watching the battle, was even more amazed at this time. He was not amazed that a child could beat an adult, but was amazed by what he had just perceived. Pulling on the cloak, he couldn't help turning one leg in place, revealing his muscular thighs in mesh stockings. Hip-hop. It's actually Haki's fluctuation? How could this boy wake up Haki at such a young age? It's a pity that Ian didn't hear what he said. At the moment when the soldiers of the Revolutionary Army screamed, Ian couldn't help but let out a scream. The difference is that the soldiers of the Revolutionary Army screamed with pain in their backs, while Ian screamed with headaches. That's right, Ian's flash finally succeeded, but what he didn't expect was that it was accompanied by a piercing headache, which was so painful that he couldn't even hold the bamboo sword in his hand. He finally knew why the description of the flash skill said that it could cause huge damage, because after the flash was activated just now, Ian's only 15 points of psychic power were used up, and he could feel it at the same time. When he made a sword, there was some kind of power wrapped around his entire sword body. That should be the ability to read. It is precisely because of the mind wrapped around the sword that his blow just now knocked down a veteran Revolutionary Army soldier. It's very much like Armament Haki's feeling, which is why Ivankov has such a surprise. It's a pity that the first time I used a flash skill. Once he really used his mind power. He couldn't grasp the consumption of mind power, which led to all the mind power being used at once, and the exhausted mind power finally brought a strong irritating headache. Ian sat on the ground and held his head tightly to ease the pain, but in Ivankov's eyes, this became a sign of Ian's awakening Haki. Chapter 10 Don't touch the head on a child. To use Haki is nothing. Ivankov has seen many people who know how to use Haki, and he is surprised by Ian's age. Haki is a potential power possessed by all human beings. It exists like an instinct, but most people are unaware of this power, or they cannot exert it throughout their lives. Under normal circumstances, people can only go through hard training and sharpening can it be possible to master the way of using this power, so generally those who can use Haki are in adulthood. However, Ivankov has seen an exception today. This exception is Ian. Judging from his height, he looks like 12 years old at most, maybe less, but such a small child has Haki fluctuations on his body. So at this moment, he looked at Ian as if he was looking at a genius. No, he looked at a monster. And Ian squatted on the ground and held his head for a while before he felt the headache eased a little. Before he could ask the system what was going on, he suddenly heard a series of prompts from the system. You defeat an opponent who is higher than your strength and gain 500 experience points. You got the achievement reward, the first time to use the mind skill to fight. You have acquired the basic mind training skills, the current proficiency, 0. What's the situation? Ian endured the headache and checked it in his mind. The experience value suddenly soared a lot, which is easy to understand. In fact, at the beginning, Ian was a little careful. The reason why he chose a Revolutionary Army soldier as his opponent was that he wanted to test his flashing skills. In addition, he also wanted to see if he could defeat the opponent to gain experience points. In his opinion, if he was a child, the opponent would definitely show mercy, which naturally gave him a chance to win. To put it bluntly, the Revolutionary Army soldier was actually slapped by Ian. However, what he didn't expect was that he could gain so much experience by defeating an opponent with higher strength than himself. Now Ian's experience value has risen to 750 points, and he will be able to level up soon, and will usher in it again at that time. Property improvement. After using the flash skill, Ian also got an achievement reward. When he opened the achievement interface, he found that the reward was actually 5 books of experience. This book of experience is not for Ian to use, but to improve the card level. In addition to this achievement reward, Ian also saw other rewards in the achievement interface, such as defeat 10 opponents, defeat 100 opponents, or reach 50 points of Deo and reach 100 points of Deo. The rewards given by these achievements are not the same. The common one is the Book of Experience, the higher ones are rewarded with advanced stones and diamonds, of which the diamond rewards are the least, and Ian is not surprised. I am very clear about the stinginess of this game system, this small amount of diamond rewards, in fact, the real purpose is to attract you to recharge. What surprised Ian the most was the basic mind training skills he had just acquired. When he first saw his basic swordsmanship skills, Ian was wondering if there are other types of such basic skills. Appeared. Basic mindfulness cultivation, increase the number of mind points recovered per hour, the current recovery value, 1 point. The current proficiency, 0/1000. After seeing the description of this skill, Ian immediately understood that this skill is used to restore his own psychic power. That's right, the skills obtained from the cards almost depend on the intent value to activate, and the one's intent energy is only a little bit. What should I do if I run out? Now that you have this basic mindfulness practice skill, even if you run out of mindfulness, you can slowly recover as long as you rest for a while. I just don't know how to increase the proficiency of this skill. Could it be that he is constantly consuming his own energy value to improve? It's very likely that this is the case. Didn't you see that the proficiency of this skill is much lower than that of the swordsmanship skill? After Ian's swordsmanship skills were upgraded to primary swordsmanship, the proficiency required to upgrade to intermediate swordsmanship turned out to be as many as 1 million. When he first saw it, even he himself took a breath of air. Comparing this value with the current mindfulness practice skills, it felt like a bunker. Perhaps it was because of the slow recovery effect of this skill that Ian's headache was relieved. Just as he was thinking about it, he suddenly realized that there seemed to be someone in front of him. He looked up and saw Ivankov's picture. Slap in the face. From a close distance, this face is even more frightening. Ian shrank back 2 steps in shock and asked, "What are you doing?" "Hip hop. Boy." Ivankov seemed to be in a very happy mood, turning around again, and said to Ian, "It's amazing, what's your name?" "My name is Ian." "Ian Candy." Ivankov said, "How are you feeling now? Do you need me to treat you?" "No, I'm better." Ian quickly waved his hands. Ivan didn't dare to accept Ivankov's kindness. The guy who ate the hormone fruit in front of him didn't even know whether he was a man or a woman. Although his current image was a man, he could turn into a woman at any time. A person who can freely control hormones, Ian is determined not to let him touch his body. The ghost knows when he treats himself with healing hormones or sex hormones. "Okay." Ivankov nodded and said, "Don't worry too much. Your headache should be the sequelae of awakening haki. It's fine. By the way, do you know what haki is?" If anyone in Shimotsuki village who was familiar with him had asked this question, Ian would have pretended to be naive and said he didn't know, but it was Ivankov who asked this question, so Ian didn't need to hide anything, he just nodded and said, "No." He understands that Ivankov may be thinking of his ability as haki, that's why he asks that. However, Ian himself knows his own affairs. Since this time, Ian has been trying to figure out his own mind ability. In his judgment, there may be some differences between the mind ability and the real haki, although the essence may be similar, however, the form of expression is not necessarily the same. The ability of the mind is wrapped around the sword, which can simulate the effect of armament haki, but such as conqueror haki, the ability of mind cannot necessarily be simulated. He guessed that he originally wanted to give Ian a long talk about haki, but he was held back by Ian's words. Ian found that he was shaking all over, with a very hard expression. "The end," Ivankov said, "you know? Ah, it's really amazing. Then I don't need to explain it to you, you just need to take more rest these days." "Who are you?" Ian pretended to ask, even though he already knew Ivankov's name. Hip-hop. I'm Emporio Ivankov. Ivankov turned around and said, you can call me Eva or Ivan, the name is not important at all, even if you call me Poop it doesn't matter. Then suddenly, Ivankov exclaimed angrily, I don't want to be called Poop. Ian looked at him speechlessly, I didn't call anything. At this time, several other soldiers of the Revolutionary Army also gathered around and looked at Ian with amazement. They probably knew about Haki, but they failed to develop it. They were very shocked that Ian could use Haki at such a young age. At the same time, it is estimated that they feel that they have lived to the dog at their age, so they praised Ian loudly. Everyone likes to listen to praise, and Ian is no exception, but the problem is that these guys are trying to touch his head while saying, little devil, it's amazing. This is unbearable. Just when Ian was about to have a seizure, the revolutionary soldier who fought against him just now came over. Seeing how he was grinning in pain, Ian still felt unsatisfied, so he asked him, are you all right? The Revolutionary Army soldier felt that he was at a loss, even if it was a fight with a child, the key was to lose the fight. However, listening to Ian's question, out of the pride of an adult, the Revolutionary Army soldier tried his best to show Ian. With a smile on his face, his white teeth gleamed, and then he even touched Ian's head. Can you take us to the dojo now? The Revolutionary Army soldier asked. Fuck me, touch my head again. Ian blinked, nodded obediently, turned around and left, and everyone quickly followed. However, what they did not expect was that under the leadership of Ian, they did not reach the dojo for a long time. Strange, why do I feel like we passed by here just now? A Revolutionary Army soldier scratched his head in confusion. How is it possible? You must have misremembered. Ian said without looking back. Everyone can only continue to follow him, but they don't know that they are completely taken by Ian and have circled the whole village. This is a small revenge from a man who resents killing his head. In fact, this was already discovered by Ian's conscience. Originally, he planned to go around a dozen times. Chapter 11 I also have Love Crazy 7. It's here. Ian stopped outside the dojo. At this time, it was noon, and Cow's hero was basking in the sun in the yard. Ian naturally saw him at a glance. After running over, he said to Cow's hero, Master, someone is coming to you. When he said this, Ian kept staring at Cow's hero, but found that Cow's hero was still smiling, and he was not surprised by the appearance of Ivankov and the others. Hello. Long time no see. Cow's hero greeted him and said to Ivankov and Big Bear with a smile. Mr. Cow's hero. Big Bear remained silent, but Ivankov called out with a laugh. Ian has been following the conversation between the two sides. He originally thought that Master Cow's hero might have something to do with the Revolutionary Army, but looking at the current situation, it seems that something is wrong. Cow's hero aside, the attitude of Ivankov, Dakshang, and the soldiers of the Revolutionary Army towards Cow's hero is not like the attitude of seeing his companions. The feeling of a regular guest. Now that I think about it carefully, I think it's the same. If Master Cow's hero was really a member of the Revolutionary Army, how could he have stayed in this Shimotsuki village for so many years? Retire? Don't be ridiculous, the Revolutionary Army has only been active in the world for a few years now. So Ian felt that Master Cow's hero should not be a member of the Revolutionary Army. Is it really just acquaintance as Ivankov said? Ian was so distracted that he didn't hear what Master Cow's hero and Ivankov said. After seeing Master Cow's hero stretch out his hand and lead them into the dojo, Ian came back to his senses. The group was brought into the dojo by Cow's hero as a guest. Since there was no special reception room in the dojo, the two parties sat down in the hall. Ian originally wanted to hear what they had to say, but Cow's hero unexpectedly let him. He goes to make tea. A last resort, Ian could only go to the back kitchen to boil water and make tea. He looked around, but he didn't see Kuina, and he didn't know where she went to exercise. So did Zoro, this idiot is probably still on the mountain. After a while, Ian boiled the water, took out a few cups to make tea, put it on a plate and took it out. After Ian came, he gave the tea to everyone, and found that he didn't know what the two sides were chatting about. Although Master Cow's hero had a smile on his face, he could sense a trace of loneliness. After seeing Ian coming, Cow's hero said to him again, "Ian, go to the warehouse to check and see how much food we have left." Food? Ah, yes, Ivankov and the others came to Shimotsuki village to prepare food. Sure enough, Ivankov said, "We'll buy it at market price." However, Cow's hero shook his head and said, "No, it's not worth much, just treat it as what I gave to you." Ivankov didn't refuse. Seeing that there was no problem, Ian turned around and walked out, preparing to go to the warehouse to count the food. Master Kojiro's voice came from behind, "The one who just went out is the oldest disciple in my dojo." Ian guessed that Master Cow's hero was introducing himself to Ivankov and the others, so he didn't mind. The food in the warehouse is produced in the fields of the dojo. Only a few people eat in the dojo, and the consumption is small, so there is still a lot of surplus. Ian took some time to count it and found that there are more than 100 bag. According to a bag of about 50 caddies, I am afraid that there are more than 5,000 caddies of grain, both wheat and rice. Ran back and reported to Cow's hero. Ivankov and the others finally decided to take 3,000 caddies of grain. Ian looked at them and found that there were only 7 or 8 of them. I didn't know how they would carry the 3,000 caddies of grain. However, what Ian didn't expect was that the big bear suddenly stood up and asked Ian to bring him to the warehouse. He tucked the thick book under his armpit, then freed his left hand and took off his right glove, revealing a strange-looking palm. On that palm, there is actually a soft-looking ball, just like the paw of a kitten, which makes people feel like they want to touch it when they see it. Meatball fruit. Such a term suddenly appeared in Ian's mind. Sure enough, Uncle Bear, are you actually the most hidden cute thing in the world of One Piece/King of Pirates? Even Ian himself had the urge to touch the meatball. The big bear walked to the position where the grain was stacked, and gently touched the grain with his right hand. Then in Ian's surprised eyes, half of the grain disappeared in an instant. Ian was still thinking about how they would carry the food, but I didn't expect it to be this way. Ian knew that the missing food was actually thrown away by the big bear with his meatball, and it was estimated that it had already landed on their boat on the coast at this time. It's really convenient. Ian looked at the big bear with admiration. Sometimes he wondered, could he also get one for something unscientific like a devil fruit? After the big bear bounced the food, he put on his gloves again. Ian thought he was going to leave the warehouse, but he didn't expect the big bear to suddenly open his mouth and asked Ian in a low voice, "If you want to travel, will you? Where are you going?" It's fine that he didn't speak, but when he spoke, Ian shivered. What the hell? How does this sentence sound so familiar? So he quickly waved his hand and said, "I don't want to travel for the time being, and even if I want to go in the future, I will go by boat myself." The big bear looked down at him. The height difference between the two was too obvious. It felt like an elephant looking at a mouse. Although Ian was very upset by the side that was counted as a mouse, he also felt a huge pressure at the moment. Because he finally remembered that Bartholomew Bear had another nickname and identity. Tyrant. One of the King Shishibukai. He won't be angry, will he? Ian thought, judging from the situation where he just bounced the food, he must have discovered the behavior of taking them around the village, otherwise how could he have bounced the food from the dojo to the coast so accurately? Ian was in a panic, but unexpectedly, the big bear suddenly took out something from his body and handed it to Ian with his gloved palm. "Take your food, this is a gift," Big Bear said in his deep voice. Ian took a look and found that the thing in his palm turned out to be a small phone bug. This phone bug is pink and small. It carries a shell with a circle of patterns on the shell. It is also connected to a microphone with a wire. On the side of the shell, there is a dial-like dial. Circle the numbers, just the words 0 to 9. The phone bug was sleeping at this time, and its two big eyes were closed. Ian took it over and poked it curiously, but found that it couldn't wake up. This is a juvenile phone bug. Big Bear said, take it with you, and when it grows up, it will become like you. So amazing. Ian carefully held the pink little guy and asked, can I make phone calls when I grow up? When it grows up, there will be an extra number on its shell, and that's your number, said the Big Bear. It was the first time Ian heard him say so much. 7 of the pirate world? When I grow up, I will become Crazy Sevens. Ian was a little excited. He didn't expect the Big Bear to give him a phone bug as a gift, so he couldn't help but said, thank you, Uncle Seong. As soon as he said it, Ian immediately reacted, bad. Bartholomew Big Bear, he didn't introduce himself to Ian. To be precise, among the Revolutionary Army, Ian should know the name, only Ivankov. Sure enough, after Uncle Seong called out, Big Seong was silent for a while, looking at Ian without speaking. Fortunately, Ian is quick-witted, tilting his head and pretending to be innocent. Uncle Bear, can I call you that? I like your hat. It looks like a bear. When Big Bear and the others entered the dojo, they had already taken off their cloaks. Now, Big Bear is wearing his black and white barrier hat. Using this hat as an excuse, the name of Uncle Bear doesn't seem so much strange. After hearing Ian's words, the Big Bear turned his head and stopped looking at him. Just as Ian was quietly relieved, the Big Bear made an action that he could never have imagined. He took off the barrier cap on his head and put it on Ian's head. If you like it, give it to you. This time, Ian is completely stunned. What the hell is this situation? Chapter 12 Dragon and the Wounded Sabo. Ian didn't know what the Big Bear was thinking and why he gave him his hat, but this silent man was always invisible to Ian, and he didn't know what he was thinking at all. The Big Bear walked out, and Ian took off the barrier hat on his head. Looking at the cute barrier hat in his hand, Ian only felt that a groove was stuck in his throat, and he didn't know how to spit it out. Hell, do people in this world like giving hats so much? I don't know what it looks like wearing this hat, Ian imagined it, and suddenly felt embarrassed. But he also knew that the Big Bear might be kind to himself. If the phone bug was sent to thank the dojo for the food, then this hat should be his personal gift of gratitude. As a last resort, Ian had to put on the barrier hat. When he returned to the dojo, Ian heard the laughter coming from inside, which surprised him. He couldn't imagine that a more traditional person like Master Chaos Hero could have a good conversation with Ivankov. Walking in, Ian said to Chaos Hero, Master, it's done. Well, we're leaving too. Ivankov rose from the ground and put his hood back on to hide his purple afro. So did Da Seong and other Revolutionary Army fighters, covering themselves up again. Chaos Hero was looking at the hat on Ian's head in surprise. After hearing Ivankov's words, he came back to his senses and asked, will you stay for a while? No, it's not good to stay in the village for a long time. Ivankov said, we will go to the beach and wait for the boat to arrive. Chaos Hero nodded and said to Ian, Ian, send them off. Okay. In fact, Chaos Hero didn't need to say it, Ian also decided to do it. Ivankov and the others said to wait for the boat by the sea, it must be waiting for Dragon. Ian wanted to follow. Ian led the way out of the dojo, followed by Ivankov and Big Bear, and the soldiers of the Revolutionary Army bowed respectfully to Chaos Hero before walking out. Looking at the empty dojo after everyone left, Chaos Hero sat on his knees without saying a word, and he didn't know what he was thinking. Along the way, including Eva, all the soldiers of the Revolutionary Army looked at the cute barriered hat on Ian's head with some surprise. They naturally knew that it was Big Bear's hat, but they were surprised that Big Bear gave his hat to others. But looking at the wavy bear without a hat at this time, even Ivankov didn't ask what was going on, they just kept staring at Ian. Feeling the burning gaze from behind, Ian only felt itchy all over, so this time, he didn't take them around in circles. The Revolutionary Army soldier who fought against Ian scratched his head and said strangely, "Hey! It doesn't seem like it came so quickly." Ian looked back at him solemnly and said, "Your illusion." "Really?" The revolutionary soldier was also a little unconfident. "Yet." Ian nodded affirmatively, "You are probably hungry. So you have an illusion." Seeing this scene, Ivankov gave a hilarious laugh and said, "What a character, boy." Ian shrugged. He knew that the detour could not be hidden from Ivankov and Big Bear, but who made him look like a child now? A child's mischief will be forgiven, isn't it? Shimotsuki village is actually not big, and the population in the village is not too large. When Ian brought everyone to the beach, he could see a few small fishing boats tied to the beach. They were fishermen in the village who went out to sea. It was already afternoon, and the fishermen had already finished their work, so the beach seemed quiet. Ivankov and his group came here, not afraid of being seen. According to the timeline, the Revolutionary Army at this time is still in the stage of accumulating strength, so it is very low-key. For them, it is best to be as invisible as possible. Ian stayed with them and waited by the beach. Ivankov wanted to persuade him to go back first, but Ian shook his head. Helpless, everyone had to let him go. I waited until it was dark, but no boats came, but fortunately, Desyong took a few revolutionary soldiers and found the food that he bounced over. After catching a few fish, the life was cooked, and I ate like this. Ian was not polite, and followed them to eat. The moon has risen in the sky, and Ian started to yawn, but suddenly he heard a revolutionary soldier standing on a high place above shouting, "Come on!" Ian quickly got up and looked into the distance, only to see a dark shadow on the sea driving in this direction under the night. As time went on, the shadow grew bigger and bigger, until after it came close, and then the moonlight, Ian could see the outline of the ship clearly. It was a huge three-masted sailing ship, but there was a dragon head at the bow, winding down, the dragon body just used as the keel to support the whole ship, and then a dragon tail was exposed at the stern, making the ship look like it's like being held by a dragon. This is Dragon's ship, no doubt. A soldier of the Revolutionary Army had already signaled the ship with a light. Dragon's ship slowly reduced its speed and approached the shore. "Eva, can I go up and have a look?" Ian pulled Ivankov's cloak and pretended innocently, "I haven't seen such a big ship before." Ivankov was not surprised by Ian's request. In fact, when Ian saw that Ian had been waiting here with them, Ivankov was guessing that Ian wanted to see their boat, so he said, "Hip hop. Little Ian Candy. It's okay to go up and see it, but let's say it first, I can't take you away. So after reading it, you have to get off the boat and go back, okay?" "No problem." Ian nodded. After the dragon boat stopped, a sampan was put down from the left side of the hull. Ivankov and the big bear started to board the boat along the sampan. Ian also followed closely, and the remaining soldiers of the Revolutionary Army began to say hello. "Bring some people on board to carry the food." As soon as he got on the boat, Ivankov shouted, "It's too slow, dragon. How long do we have to wait?" Ian followed behind Ivankov, using his tall body to stick his head out and look forward, only to see a figure wearing the same green cloak on the deck, slowly turning around. Under the moonlight, Dragon was still wearing his hood, so Ian couldn't see his face clearly. "Sorry." Dragon started, his voice sounded low, "Something has been delayed, in order to save this child." As he turned, revealing a small child lying on the deck behind him, Ian saw the thick bandages wrapped around him at first glance. The bandage not only wrapped around the child's whole body, but also wrapped his head and face. He was in a state of fainting with his mouth wide open. Dark burn marks could still be seen in the gap between the bandages. Under the pale gecko's light, the bandages seeped under the bandages. The blood that came out was so dazzling. Even Ian couldn't help shivering when he saw the child. He was frightened by the child's injury. Needless to say, this child must be Sabo, who was rescued from the sea by Dragon. When he truly saw Sabo's tragic situation at the moment, even Ian couldn't help but feel a fire in his heart. How cruel does he have to be to give such a heavy hand to a child? If it wasn't for Dragon, who happened to rescue Sabo, maybe Sabo really died like this. At this moment, for the first time, Ian truly realized how brutal Tenryubito was. Naturally, Ivankov also saw Sabo lying on the deck, jumped over in surprise, crouched down to check. This is too serious. Hey, get someone to help with the wound. Ivankov yelled. Ivan, can you heal him? Dragon asked. No, the child is too young, he needs special medicines. Ivankov said, I can only hang him first. I have to send him to treatment quickly. After speaking, Ivankov took off his gloves and slammed his hands on Sabo's body. Healing hormones, adrenaline. Sabo on the ground suddenly coughed. Ivankov saw this and said happily, very good, the heartbeat has recovered. Several Revolutionary Army soldiers quickly took this opportunity to lift Sabo on a stretcher and send him to the cabin. Ivankov raised his head and asked Dragon, who is this child? Why is he so badly injured? Dragon shook his head and said, I don't know his name, he was attacked by Tenryubito, in that pathetic country. Really? Ivankov was speechless for a while. At this moment, a voice suddenly came, saying, his name is Sabo. Hey! Dragon was stunned, looking in the direction of the voice, and saw another child standing on the deck. The one who made the voice was naturally Ian. Who are you? Dragon was a little curious. You know this injured child? While questioning, Dragon naturally saw the bear-eared hat on Ian's head, and couldn't help but glanced in the direction of the big bear. Ian shook his head and said, I just know his name. He knew very well that Sabo had suffered such a serious injury this time. After the injury was healed, he would lose his memory. He said this name only for the people in the Revolutionary Army to call him in the future. In fact, even if Ian didn't say it, the people of the Revolutionary Army would know his name from the things he carried on Sabo. The reason why Ian said it was actually subconscious. Dragon looked at Eva. Eva spread her hands and said, this is a boy in the village dojo, a very character boy, I will take him on the boat to have a look. Really? Dragon glanced at Ian, didn't say anything, just turned his head and asked, where's the food? A Revolutionary Army soldier replied, the dojo in the village gave us some. Well, get ready to sail. Dragon said, return to Baildij. Ian has seen it now, and he has no regrets in his heart. At this time, after hearing what Dragon said, he knew that he was issuing an evacuation order, so he said, I'm going back to the dojo too. After he finished speaking, he walked towards the sampan on the side of the boat. Before taking 2 steps, he suddenly heard Dragon say, Eva, send him off. Ivankov followed Ian and took him off the boat. When he came to the shore, Ivankov said to Ian, Ian little candy, don't tell anyone what happened to us, you know. I understand. You are not ordinary people. Ian shrugged, by the way, Uncle Bear gave me a phone bug, can I know your number? Ivankov was stunned for a moment, then reacted, Uncle Bear? You call him that? What do you want my number for? Ian nodded, because I may need to find you in the future. Chapter 13 Leaving Episode. The ship of the Revolutionary Army has left the shore and is sailing on the vast sea. Dragon stood on the bow, looking into the distance. At this moment he had taken off his cloak, revealing Haki's long hair, and the strange diamond pattern on his face. Hearing the footsteps coming from behind, Dragon said without turning his head, "A bear?" Big Bear stood behind him without speaking. Dragon turned around and saw that the Big Bear had put on a bear-eared hat again. Isho grinned and said, "So there are spares. It's rare, you actually give your beloved hat to a stranger you don't know. Boy! The Revolutionary Army needs more companions." Big Xiong said in a low voice, "That's a young man with great potential, maybe there will be another day to meet." "You're right." Dragon looked up at the starry night sky, "Constantly accumulate strength. When the Revolutionary Army can be as many as the stars in the sky, we can set off a prairie fire. This process is very long, it will take more than 10 years or even decades, and by that time, perhaps we have already died of old age, and the rest will be their younger generation. Bear, I'm going to ask you to do something." After Dragon sighed, he suddenly turned to the big bear and said, "This may be difficult, but someone has to do it." The big bear didn't speak, just looked at Dragon. 11 years ago, One Piece/King of Pirates Gold Roger was executed in Logue Town in East Blue. Dragon said, "The world government was originally intended to deter the increasingly rampant pirates, but they did not expect at that time, the words that Roger left before his death made them counterproductive. Over the years, more and more pirates have appeared on the Great Route. The power of marine alone has gradually become insufficient. The information I got in the middle, they are discussing the formation of Shishibukai, the king, and plan to use pirates to counterbalance pirates. This is a good opportunity. I want you to become a member of Shishibukai. Are you planning to use Shishabukai's identity to spy on the world government's intelligence?" Big Bear asked. "That's right, and if possible, you have to find a way to get in touch with someone." Dragon said solemnly, "Vegapunk. The genius scientist of this world government. I care about him very much." Having said that, Dragon turned around again, looked at the sea and said, "When the time comes, the connection between you and the Revolutionary Army should be reduced as much as possible, and everything is up to you to decide." "When will we leave?" Big Bear asked after being silent for a while. "Soon, you can disembark in the middle. The Revolutionary Army cannot help you. You can only rely on your own strength to take Shishabukai's position alone." Dragon said, "Do you need to say goodbye to Eva?" "No need." After the Big Bear said, holding his book, he turned back to the cabin, leaving Dragon alone, and continued to quietly look at the sea in front of him. Sending Ivankov and the Big Bear away, Ian returned to the dojo in the moonlight. Zoro was also in the dojo at this time. He was holding a big rock, and he was learning how to do squats without stopping. He kept counting, 580, 581, 582. Not far from him is Kuina, who is holding a bamboo sword, constantly swinging the sword at the erected target. It can be seen that he has been practicing for a long time, and his body is covered in sweat. After finding Ian back, Kuina greeted him from a distance, "Brother Ian, where have you been today? Why haven't I seen you?" Zoro also put down the stone at this time, walked over to stand with Kuina, and said, "Brother Ian, I ate your dinner together." Before the words were finished, Ian came to them, and all of a sudden they both saw the bear-eared hat on Ian's head. Pfft! Pfft! Zoro couldn't help it, pointed to Ian's head, and laughed loudly, "Wow, ha 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 ha! What a weird hat!" Only him, but even Kuina, with a weird expression on his face, probably because he wanted to laugh but didn't want to laugh out loud, so he held back. "Ian is so hot, Kuina doesn't matter, Zoro, the green algae-headed idiot, dares to laugh so arrogantly? Smile." Without even thinking about it, Ian raised his hand and gave Zoro a headbutt neatly. Oops! Zoro's laughter immediately turned into a scream, and a big bag was swollen on his head. "Why beat me?" Zoro said fiercely at Ian. He pointed at Kuina and said to Ian, "Didn't she laugh too?" Ian's eyes widened, "I see you are upset, so I hit you." Kuina couldn't take it anymore, turned her face to cover her mouth and giggled. Damn it! Zoro knew now that he couldn't get this justice back. This was typical differential treatment. After laughing enough, Ian asked, "Where's Master?" Kuina wiped the tears from the corner of her eyes and said, "I don't know, I haven't been there before." Ian entered the dojo, went around looking for Kao's hero, and sent the revolutionary army away. He had to reply to Ku's hero, but he searched all over the dojo but couldn't see him. "I don't know how to go," but Ian finally turned to the woods behind the dojo. It was only at this time that Ian finally found Kao's hero. However, at the first sight of Master Kao's hero, Ian knew that he could not disturb him now. Because Kao's hero was kneeling in front of a tombstone at this time, motionless. This tombstone, Ian knows, it is the tomb of Kuina's mother. Kuina's mother died not long after she gave birth to Kuina. Ian was still very young at that time, and he didn't even remember what the teacher looked like, let alone Kuina. In his usual conversation, Kao's hero master rarely mentions Kuina's mother, but occasionally sighs that Kuina looks a lot like her. Ian is very strange. I don't know why Master Kao's hero came to worship at the tomb at night. This is a very abnormal move. Just thinking about it, Ian suddenly thought of Ivankov and the others who had just left today, and his heart suddenly moved. Could it be that the abnormal behavior of Master Kao's hero has something to do with the appearance of Ivankov and the others? Why did Ivankov and the others show up and let Master Kao's hero come to worship at the tomb in the middle of the night? Could it be that Kuina's mother, his own wife, was actually related to the revolutionary army? Ian was taken aback by the thought that popped up in his mind, but then when he contacted the various performances of Master Kao's hero in the daytime today, he found that this conjecture was possible. Master Kao's hero is very mysterious, no one knows his origin, and no one knows his strength, but Ian knows his character very well. And feels that he does not have the rebellious spirit of rebellion in the revolutionary army. The army can be said to be out of place. However, Ivankov and the others knew Kao's hero again, and Kao's hero greeted them with a smile, but he seemed so polite in his conversation. Then the only thing Ian can think of, the bridge between the two, is Kuina's mother. Perhaps Kuina's mother was a soldier of the revolutionary army, or even a cadre, and should be the first group of members of the revolutionary army. Ivankov and the others actually knew Kuina's mother, and they also knew Master Kao's hero. This can explain the attitude problem between them. Ian thought about it like this, thinking that maybe this is the case, so he quietly left. If Master Kao's hero didn't say it, he wouldn't ask. There might be something hidden in this matter, and it's probably not a good past. Ian was unwilling to expose Master Kojiro's scars, so he just pretended he didn't see it. All right. After returning to the dojo, Ian came to his room and looked at the little pink phone bug that the big bear gave him on the table. At this time, the little guy was asleep with his eyes closed, and Ian wanted to tease it for 2. It didn't work, so I washed and slept. It's late at night, and the peaceful Shimatsuki village looks peaceful under the moonlight. What happened during the day today is just a small episode for this village. When the sun rises the next day, a new day will come. We'll return to the previous track. Chapter 14, Dream of Going to Sea. The next day, Ian got up early, and after leaving some leaves and weeds for the little phone bug, Ian put on a bare-eared hat called Zoro and started another day of exercise. Running around the village, constantly correcting Zoro, the road idiot, in the direction of going, then after running, he came to the woods on the mountain and started swinging his sword and practicing strength. After these exercises were completed, Ian found a rope, tied a stone alone, and hung it from a branch. Holding the bamboo sword in his right hand, he shoved the hanging stone forward with his left hand. Because of the pendulum principle, the stone quickly swayed back in the direction of Ian. Ian waited motionless, and when the stone was about to hit him, he tried to activate a flash skill. Then, with a bang, Ian's face was hit by a stone. Really hurts. Ian covered his face, feeling as if his nose was bleeding, with a sour and numb feeling. Unexpectedly, the launch failed again, and the timing of this flash was really a problem. That's right, this is what Ian thought of, how to practice the flash skill. This skill is indeed very powerful, but it has a flaw, that is, it is completely passive and can only be used at the moment of the attack, not by yourself. Actively use it. Ian lacked opponents now, so he came up with such a method to make the hanging stone hit him, simulating the enemy's attack. People will have subconscious reactions. When faced with an attack, the first reaction is to want to escape. If Ian wants to overcome the subconscious reaction caused by this fear, he must keep going. Just train yourself. Getting up, Ian wiped his nose, and it really bleeds. Zoro has been staring at Ian's movements since just now. He doesn't know what strange things he is doing. At this time, after seeing Ian's nose bleed by being hit by a stone, he couldn't help but say from the side, "Brother Ian, why don't you get out of the way? Do you become a fool after you put your hat on?" Ian was raising his head to stop the bleeding at this time. When he heard the words, he said angrily, "You know the shit, I'm comprehending sword moves." "Hey!" Zoro's eyes lit up. "Sword move?" "That's right," Ian said, "a very powerful sword move. Master Chao's hero has never taught them any sword skills, whether it's Kuina or Ian or Zoro and other juniors in the dojo. What they practice day after day are all basic moves. Master Chao's hero, I said that in fact, all sword skills are derived from the basics. It is very reasonable, but it is undeniable that such basic training will feel monotonous after a long time. This is also the reason why Zoro's eyes are shining. He thinks that if he can use sword moves, he might be able to defeat Kuina. "Brother Ian, teach me." Zoro hurried forward and looked at Ian with admiration. "I want to learn swordsmanship too." "No." Ian shook his head and said, "You even ate my meal yesterday. Then I'll leave you my meal for today, teach me." Zoro yelled. Ian was in high school. He hadn't mastered the flashing skill yet. How to teach it to others, but then he rolled his eyes and asked, "Do you really want to learn?" "Really?" Zoro nodded hastily. "Actually, sword moves," Ian said solemnly, "everyone understands sword moves differently, so I can't teach you, but..." "But what?" Zoro asked, tilting his head. "But it's not impossible." Ian pointed to the bare-eared hat on his head and said, "The solution is to wear a hat. Look, I didn't start to understand sword moves until I put on the hat." Zoro was dumbfounded when he heard it. Ian is very proud. Zoro, the green algae-headed idiot, laughs so loudly at his hat every time, which makes him feel like a senior brother. "It's all right, I see how you laugh. Making up a lofty reason for your own behavior is the only way to fool a bare child." However, before Ian could finish being complacent, Zoro suddenly said, "I don't want it, this hat looks so stupid." Puff! Ian spat out a mouthful of old blood, and was actually complained by the idiot Zoro. Without thinking about it, Ian hit him with a hammer again. He found that beating Zoro had become a habit now. Ignoring the green algae-head idiot who was holding his head and screaming, Ian stood up and continued to start his own practice. For a whole morning, Ian was hit by a stone many times, and the whole face was already terrible. During this period, the number of successful flashes was pitiful. However, he was not without gains. Practicing a flash is actually training the basic mindfulness practice skills, because activating a flash requires consumption of mindfulness. During this process, the proficiency of mindfulness cultivation skills has increased a little, but Ian also gradually felt the mind strength. After a night's rest, his mind energy has recovered to the full value of 15 points. If it is not controlled, he may run out of mind at one time. So he tried to control the output of his own thoughts, but he didn't expect that it was really possible. This was completely determined by his will, and it was easier to control. Through experiments, he found that the minimum psychic energy required to activate the flash skill is actually 2 points. One of these 2 psychic energy points is wrapped around the sword, while the other is attached to his body. Yes, that momentary movement method requires a strong explosive power of one's own muscles, and this mental energy plays this role. When the flash is successfully launched, due to the blessing of psychic energy, Ian can achieve a higher speed of swinging his sword than usual, so as to achieve an instant counterattack. If he is not holding a bamboo sword at this time, but a real sword, then the high speed the swipe of the sword will form a knife light, which is the origin of the name of the flash. Although it is possible to control the output of the mind, it is not easy to perceive the timing of the shot. After all, a stone is a stone. If it is replaced by a real enemy as an opponent, the opponent's attack may be fast or slow, and the control of the timing of the shot will be even more difficult. It was difficult, so Ian had to keep exercising. The activation of the flash skill a few times quickly consumed Ian's intent energy. He had to stop and sighed a little regretfully. Now, the number of times he practiced is restricted. For the training skills of mindfulness, if he can have more mindfulness and mindfulness recovery speed, he will be able to practice for a while longer. Although Zoro is also exercising himself, he has been watching Ian's movements since just now. When he saw Ian successfully activate a flash skill for the first time, the stone in his mouth fell and almost smashed it again. To your own feet. He opened his mouth wide in surprise. But he didn't expect that Ian really realized the sword move. Is it really that great to wear a hat? Zoro thought so. But that hat is really stupid. Zoro was so confused. After seeing Ian stop, Zoro asked aloud, "Brother Ian, are you trying to cut through that stone? It doesn't seem possible." Ian was very tired at this time, and his brain was aching. He knew that this was a sequelae caused by the exhaustion of mind energy, but it was much better than yesterday. Hearing Zoro's question, Ian shook his head and said, "Cut open. What is a stone? There are people in this world who can cut through steel." "Ah? Is there such a powerful person?" Zoro said in surprise. "This world is very big, there are all kinds of people." Ian replied with a smile, then got up and said, "Let's go back to eat." On their way back, Ian found that he was all limp and had no strength, so he rode directly on Zoro's neck and asked Zoro to take him back to the dojo. Zoro, this idiot, actually believed it. Carrying Ian for a while, he ran back to the dojo. The wound on Ian's face made even Kuina startled, so he hurriedly got medicine to bandage Ian. After the treatment was over and eating, Ian couldn't hold on any longer, so he just lay on his back in the dojo, exclaiming, "Who to sleep in the past?" What he didn't know was that because of what he said, someone could cut through steel. Zoro even went to ask Master Cow's hero after dinner. "Master! Master! I heard that there are people in the world who can cut through steel, is this true?" "Yeah. Really?" Master Cow's hero nodded. Standing up, Master Cow's hero took out a piece of paper and said, "Take a good look at this piece of paper." Immediately, he threw the paper into the air, and before the paper fell, he drew his sword and slashed over it. Then, that paper was intact. "Master, you didn't cut it off at all," Zoro said speechlessly. "Listen to Zoro, there are swordsmen in this world who can cut everything, but he can cut through steel. With the same sword." Master Cow's hero said with a smile, "The so-called strongest sword is to protect what you want to protect. The power to sever whatever you want. For me, a sword that can sever anything is not a sword. Do you understand?" Cow's hero asked. Zoro looked at Cow's hero stupidly. "Master, I want to be a swordsman who can cut through anything." A bead of sweat hung on Master Kojiro's forehead. "Zoro, did you understand what you just said?" Zoro must not understand these words now, but the words of Ian and Master Cow's hero made Zoro have a longing for the outside world for the first time. One day, I will definitely be able to go out to sea to meet those amazing people, I will definitely be able to. You've reached the end of part 1. Want to know what happens next? Part 2 and the rest of the story are available on Patreon. Go to Patreon and search for my page to continue listening. Join Patreon and continue the story from part 2. Thank you for listening and supporting the channel.